Chapter 2464. Inside the mountain river cauldron, a dragon essence floated in the vast void. 9 dragon shadows swam around the dragon essence. Those were the 9 extreme Emperor Dragon marks. Every single extreme Emperor Dragon mark emitted a powerful aura that was capable of crushing the heavens and the earth. Even if they were sealed by the primordial chaos Tao markings, the aura they emitted still caused Ji Yufei's heart to palpitate. Even the mountain river cauldron could not completely isolate the aura of the extreme Emperor Dragon essence. Rumble. The void was shaking. The void around the extreme Emperor Dragon essence rippled like water. If it were not for the power of the mountain river cauldron that sealed the void, the place where the extreme Emperor Dragon essence was would definitely have collapsed. Such a strong dragon essence could not even be withstood by the heaven and earth. The extreme Emperor Dragon power was enough to shatter the void and turn an area into chaos. Ha ha, inside the mountain river cauldron, the wretched old man laughed. The extreme Emperor Dragon essence was a complete dragon essence left behind by the ancient ancestor dragon. Ji Yufei was envious when he saw the dragon essence. After all, this dragon essence was stronger than the immortal divinity of the god ancestor's immortal divine body that he had obtained in the Sunset Devil Cave. The ancient ancestor dragon was a carnate divine beast that was born by the heaven and earth. It was extremely powerful and once dominated the untainted land. As for the immortal divine body in the setting sun demon cave, it was killed by the setting sun demon ancestor before it was born. Compared to the extreme Emperor Dragon Yuan, the origin power of the god ancestor was much weaker. No wonder this guy looked down on the origin of the god ancestor. It was too good for him. Ji Yufei knew that it would take him a long time to completely absorb the origin of the god ancestor. Although he was jealous, he did not have any thoughts about the extreme Emperor Dragon essence. Moreover, this time, he had obtained 7 quasi-immortal divine medicines. 7 quasi-immortal divine medicines were equivalent to 1 immortal divine medicine. Such a harvest was not small. Haha, brat, you're lucky. I'm in a good mood. I'll give you this palace, the old man said with a smile. He was the god's will of the mountain and river cauldron, which was equivalent to a supreme being. If he could take away the dragon essence of the emperor, he could naturally take away the divine palace as well. However, Ji Yufei knew that it was not so easy to take away the palace because the ancestral dragon must have left his personal mark in the palace. Of course, it would be a different story if the mountain and river cauldron was willing to help. Hehe, thank you very much. Ji Yufei was a little depressed. If he had known that there would be such a good thing, then what the mountain and river cauldron had done previously would have been unnecessary. Actually, what Ji Yufei did not know was that even if the mountain and river cauldron had the ability to erase the mark of the ancient ancestral dragon in the Shen Palace, it would still be difficult for him to obtain the divine weapons in the weapon-keeping pavilion, and even more difficult for him to obtain the divine medicines in the herb farm. The seal set up by the ancestral dragon was not that simple. The mountain and river cauldron did not hesitate and immediately took action. Soon, an ancient cauldron rose from the Shen Palace and floated high up in the sky. A powerful aura that could shock the heavens spread from the ancient cauldron. An extremely powerful sealing force erupted and streaks of primordial chaos Tao patterns rushed out from the mountain and river cauldron and imprinted themselves in the Shen Palace. At this moment, a golden light appeared in the center of the Shen Palace. Within the golden light, the shadow of a dragon could be vaguely seen. That was the mark of the ancient ancestral dragon. It was extremely powerful and the dragon-shaped Tao pattern emitted a powerful ultimate emperor power. Ji Yufei could not help but change his expression. What happened next was not surprising. The mountain and river cauldron showed its power and used the primordial chaos Tao patterns to suppress the ancestral dragon mark and then erase it. After the ancestral dragon mark was erased by the power of the mountain and river cauldron, Ji Yufei sensitively sensed that the aura of the entire Shen Palace had become somewhat different. Rumble, at this moment, the entire Shen Palace actually moved, which shocked Ji Yufei to the extreme. Even the mountain and river cauldron was a little surprised. The wretched-looking old man walked out of the mountain and river cauldron and then carefully sensed something. At this moment, an incomparably powerful aura of life awakened below the Shen Palace. It was as if an ancient beast had awakened from its slumber. "Damn, it's that stone turtle," the old man in the form of a god inside the mountain and river cauldron exclaimed in shock. When Jiu Fei heard this, he felt incredulous. The ancient ancestral dragon's Shen Palace was built on top of an incomparably huge stone turtle. However, he never would have thought that the stone turtle was actually not an inanimate object, but an incomparably powerful living creature. At this moment, the stone turtle was undergoing a shocking change. The stone skin on the outside of the stone turtle was cracking and falling off. Two incomparably huge eyes appeared in the dark bottom of the sea. Roar! The stone turtle woke up and roared into the sky. Terrifying waves swept out in all directions, and the depths of the sea were instantly thrown into chaos. This directly affected the surface of the sea. On the surface of the sea, huge waves rose into the sky. A powerful and terrifying aura spread out from the depths of the sea. The sky above the sea suddenly changed color, and the sun and moon lost their light. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Thunder rumbled in the depths of the sky. This was a sign that the power of divine punishment was about to descend. In the depths of the sea, the giant turtle carrying the dragon palace seemed to have also sensed the existence of the power of divine punishment. It actually sealed its own cultivation at the first instant. In the Shen Palace, Jiu Fei was extremely shocked. This giant turtle was definitely the one that had lived for the longest time in the world. It should be known that the ancient ancestral dragon's era was very far away from the current era. The ancient divine turtle. Jiu Fei sensed the monstrous aura of life and could not help but be moved. Such a living creature had lived for countless years. It was definitely a super antique and extremely frightening. He had already guessed that the mountain and river cauldron must have erased the imprint of the great path that belonged to the ancestral dragon in the dragon palace, allowing the ancient divine turtle to awaken. At this moment, the ancient divine turtle carried the Shen Palace and rose to the surface of the sea. Soon, a Shen Palace broke through the surface of the sea. Jiu Fei did not hesitate. He directly opened his inner world and put the Shen Palace and the ancient divine turtle into his inner world. The ancient divine turtle did not resist and let Jiu Fei put it into his inner world. A huge divine turtle carrying a Shen Palace appeared in Jiu Fei's divine land. This shocking scene shocked all the living creatures in the divine land. The people of the Meng family rushed over and were all dumbfounded when they saw a gigantic black turtle crawling in the mountains with a divine palace on its back. Soon, the three emperors of the undead clan also arrived. This scene also shocked the three emperors of the undead clan. Everyone hurriedly responded and left. Even Meng Long left with the Meng family's patriarch. After dismissing everyone, Jiu Fei soared into the sky and flew into the depths of this divine land. This was the divine land of divine land. The spiritual qi here was so thick that it was almost liquefied. A few divine springs of life dotted the mountain ridge. This place was surrounded by auspicious clouds and auspicious qi. Immortal birds and auspicious beasts could be seen indistinctly in the mountains. There were countless spiritual herbs growing near the divine springs of life. Spiritual herbs could be seen everywhere, and even divine herbs could be seen. The land nourished by the spiritual qi of the divine springs of life was most suitable for the growth of spiritual herbs and divine herbs. In the outside world, spiritual herbs could only grow in places where spiritual qi gathered. If one wanted to find spiritual herbs, one had to enter the mountains and look for those places with immortal qi. In the depths of Jiu Fei's inner world, within a radius of several thousand miles, was a land of immortal spiritual energy. The area around the few divine springs of life was a rare treasure land. If there were no accidents, after countless years, there might be Xiantian lifeforms born here. Jiu Fei patrolled the depths of the divine land. He saw the immortal ancestral dragon herb in the divine springs of life, bathing in the water of the divine spring of life. He also saw the 7 quasi-immortal herbs absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. In the end, the primordial divine turtle came to the largest divine spring of life in this divine land and stopped. Then, it became motionless and actually fell into a deep sleep. However, Ji Yufei could feel that the spiritual chi of heaven and earth around the primordial divine turtle was gradually being absorbed by the primordial divine turtle. However, this process was very slow. The primordial divine turtle had been sealed by the ancient ancestral dragon for countless years. Even if it didn't die, its vitality was damaged. It needed to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to gradually recover. It's time to go back. Ji Yufei stood on the mountain peak and looked towards the sky. His eyes became incomparably deep. Then, he directly opened the inner world and walked out. At this moment, the sea was surging and the sky was dark. Black clouds fell from the sky and dazzling lightning flashed in the black clouds. A storm was coming. Ji Yufei appeared above the sea. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but frown. Then, he was about to leave and return to the Falling Stars continent. However, at this moment, a giant tentacle broke through the surface of the sea without any warning and rushed towards Ji Yufei in the sky. Ji Yufei was startled. Then, he used the 8 desolation steps and instantly disappeared from where he was, dodging the tentacle. Whoosh! The giant tentacle flew across the sky and smashed through the void. It crushed the place where Ji Yufei was just a moment ago, and even the chaotic air was smashed out. What a strong physique. Seeing this, Ji Yufei was secretly shocked. So it was the gigantic beast in the depths of the sea that made a move. This gigantic beast was extremely powerful and not something that ordinary sea beasts could compare to. Whoosh! Another tentacle broke out of the water and lashed at Ji Yufei. It was like a long whip that was as large as a mountain ridge. Wherever it passed, there was a sharp sound as it tore through the air. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Ji Yufei bellowed. Chaotic force surged from his body and he did not dodge this time. He directly threw a punch at the incoming tentacle. The powerful force caused the entire space to tremble. Boom! With a loud bang, Ji Yufei's punch landed on the tentacle. The tentacle, which was as big as a mountain ridge, was actually blown away by his punch. Roar! A deep roar rang out from the depths of the sea. The surface of the sea shook violently, creating towering waves. An extremely powerful baleful aura surged up from the depths of the sea. "I'd like to see just what this guy is," muttered Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei muttered. He stared at the surface of the sea below. The sea beast was rapidly approaching the surface of the sea. Numerous gigantic tentacles reached out from the sea. Chapter 2466. The surface of the sea rumbled as huge waves rose high into the sky. The gigantic beast was finally about to appear. Even Ji Yufei was feeling a little nervous. One must know that this sea beast was different from the rest. It even dared to attack the seal of the Dragon Palace at the bottom of the sea. This meant that it was definitely a supreme being. An existence like this was practically invincible in the human realm. However, before the power of the heaven's wrath in the human realm disappeared, even a quasi-supreme being would have to use a secret technique to suppress their cultivation, not daring to challenge the power of the heaven's wrath. As such, even if this sea beast was a quasi-supreme being, Ji Yufei did not mind it at all. This sea beast was definitely a decent opponent. Rumble! A powerful aura surged out from the sea. On the surface of the sea, a series of gigantic tentacles that were as huge as mountains reached out from the sea. The gigantic beast had finally revealed itself. Looking at this scene, Ji Yufei's eyes narrowed. A gigantic head appeared on the surface of the sea. It was the head of an octopus. However, underneath the octopus head, there was a human body. A gigantic beast with a human body and an octopus head stood up from the surface of the sea. Roar! The gigantic beast roared into the sky. Its voice caused the dark clouds in the sky to disperse. Opening its mouth, it sucked in an endless amount of lightning bolts into its body. Ji Yufei could only feel his body tightening. He was also enveloped by that powerful devouring force. He then flew towards the gigantic mouth uncontrollably. "Chimph, trying to devour me? Do you even have the capability?" Ji Yufei said in a deep voice. He then waved his hands in front of him. A wave of energy rippled out from his hands, causing countless runes to appear in the sky. The devouring force that was coming from the mouth of the octopus was instantly neutralized by Jiu Fei. With Jiu Fei as the center, everything within a radius of 1,000 feet was calm and tranquil. Human, hand over the God Palace and I will let you leave. A voice rang out in Jiu Fei's mind. This octopus was sending a message to Jiu Fei. I can leave any time. Can you stop me? Jiu Fei said with an expressionless face. He directly soared into the sky and looked indifferently at the kraken below. Reckless. The strange octopus was infuriated. 8 tentacles immediately shot out and whipped towards Jiu Fei. Each tentacle was larger than a mountain ridge, and there were runes circulating on the surface of the tentacles. The octopus monster used the power of the Great Tao as soon as it attacked. Of course, this power had not broken through the limits of the mortal world. Although it was infinitely close to the sage rank, it was still not the true power of the sage rank. If the mortal world didn't have the power of heaven's wrath, then Jiu Fei would naturally turn around and leave upon encountering such a powerful opponent. One must know that a quasi-sovereign was incomparably powerful, it wasn't something that he could deal with. Moreover, using the Extreme Tao Saint artifact required time. By the time the Extreme Tao Saint artifact was fully activated, he would have died countless times. Buzz. When the 8 tentacles reached him, Jiu Fei's body trembled, causing the void to tremble. A mass of chaotic divine light rushed out from his body. Those 8 incomparably huge tentacles directly slammed onto the layer of chaotic divine light around him. The power of chaos erupted, and the huge tentacles were sent flying away by Jiu Fei's protective divine light. Swish. Jiu Fei charged forward. With a single step, he instantly appeared above the head of the kraken. He then stomped down with his foot. A powerful force came crashing down from his right foot, causing the void beneath his feet to collapse. This was a martial arts battle technique, the 8 killing steps, 8 steps 8 kills. The kraken monster was taken aback. It didn't expect this puny human to be so strong. By the time it realized this, it was already too late. At this moment, one of the tentacles of the kraken monster transformed into a huge hand and slapped upwards, welcoming the right foot of Jiu Fei. Boom! With a loud noise, the mountain-like palm blocked Jiu Fei's right foot. 2 powerful forces collided. This was a very strange scene. The giant hand of the kraken monster was bigger than a mountain, blocking the sky. Compared to this giant hand, Jiu Fei's entire body was too small. However, such a small human was able to resist this incomparably huge hand. You have some ability. After saying that, Jiu Fei took a second step. A terrifying power formed beneath his feet before erupting outwards. Countless runes appeared beneath his feet, intertwining with one another. It was as though a primal divine sun had appeared beneath his feet. A supreme power directly shattered the void space around him. 8 killing steps, 8 killing steps. The power of the second step was at least twice as strong as the first step, while the power of the third step was several times stronger than the second step. When Jiu Fei took the second step, the giant hand of the kraken monster suddenly exploded. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The sky looked like it was raining blood. At this level of cultivation, every drop of blood contained great power. The flesh and blood of a quasi-supreme being, to a certain extent, was comparable to a divine medicine. Roar. The kraken monster roared. Its voice shook the sky. Cracks appeared in the surrounding void, spreading towards the distance like black lightning. Human, you have angered me. The kraken monster staggered a few steps back. The giant hand that was crushed by Jiu Fei's stomp was rapidly recovering. The flesh and bones that were blown away were all restored. The giant hand instantly reassembled, as if it had never been injured. So what if I've angered you? Jiu Fei was a little amused. Could it be that this big guy had stayed at the bottom of the sea for too long that it had turned stupid? Since they were enemies, they should just fight to the death. What's the point of talking so much nonsense? Are you going to say that the consequences will be severe? Jiu Fei continued. The kraken monster was enraged. Those 2 incomparably huge eyes shone with an incomparably fierce light. A ferocious aura spread out, and beams of bloodlight appeared around its body. You? If you want to fight, then fight. If not, I'm leaving. Ji Fei looked at the Kraken monster and said impatiently, "Go to hell." The Kraken monster was enraged. A powerful force erupted from its body. Its body shrunk rapidly as it charged towards Ji Fei. "Heh, this is getting interesting." Ji Fei laughed. His battle intent was like a rainbow. His long hair fluttered even though there was no wind. He then charged towards the Kraken monster. Boom! Two fists collided fiercely. A powerful force erupted, causing a huge piece of the void to collapse. Two figures crossed each other at high speed. Chapter 2467. A quasi-supreme being was different from an ordinary sage-level expert. This kind of existence had already touched that level and could be said to have surpassed the shackles of the sage level. This Kraken's physical body was undoubtedly incomparably strong. It could even compete with Ji Fei's chaotic immortal martial body. Every single move it made was extremely powerful. However, what Ji Fei didn't know was that at this time, the Kraken was even more shocked than him. It couldn't imagine that a puny human could be so strong. A quasi-supreme being's physical body was definitely the strongest in the human world. Even a wholly venerable existence couldn't withstand a single punch from it. However, this puny human was not only not a wholly venerable, he wasn't even a great sage. Yet, his physical body was so strong that it defied the heavens. The Kraken could even sense a very weak immortal divinity aura coming from Ji Fei's body. Such an aura could only appear on a supreme being. Could this guy be pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? The more the Kraken fought, the more shocked it became. It saw with its own eyes that this human entered the underwater dragon palace and took it away. It also felt an extreme aura erupting in the underwater dragon palace. In fact, when Ji Fei appeared in this part of the sea, the Kraken had already sensed the existence of Ji Fei and the mountain and river cauldron. The reason why the Kraken didn't make a move and had been watching from the side was because it wanted to see if this human could break the seal of the underwater dragon palace. Originally, the Kraken thought that everything was under its control. It never expected that the underwater dragon palace that it had guarded for countless years would be taken away by this human. It couldn't understand how a puny human could have the ability to take away the underwater dragon palace. One should know that in the endless years, creatures that were much stronger than this human had found this place. None of them had succeeded. They couldn't break the seal of the underwater dragon palace at all. Boom! Dull sounds of collision sounded continuously. The figures of Ji Fei and the Kraken moved quickly above the sea. Cracks that looked like black lightning constantly appeared in the sky above the sea. The self-recovery ability of space was very strong. The broken void would be instantly repaired by the power of the laws of heaven and earth. "How can your fleshly body be this powerful?" the Kraken said in a deep voice while attacking. Ji Fei's physique had already exceeded common sense. This was something that the Kraken couldn't understand. "What does that have to do with you?" Ji Fei blocked the Kraken's punch and said. At the same time, his right leg swept horizontally towards the Kraken's waist. However, the Kraken's 8 tentacles have all turned into arms. When the 8 arms move together, Ji Fei has a feeling that 2 fists can't defeat 8 arms. Bang! After a long battle, Ji Fei was punched on his left shoulder by the Kraken. His whole body couldn't help but fly away, feeling a sharp pain on his shoulder. "All right." Ji Fei stabilized his body. His eyes flashed with a sharp light as he looked at the incoming Kraken. He hasn't felt pain for a long time. This Kraken is definitely a hard-to-come-by opponent. Of course, Ji Fei also knew that if it wasn't for the existence of Heaven's Wrath, which sealed the octopus's quasi-supreme level cultivation, he wouldn't have been a match for it. No matter how heaven-defying Ji Fei is, the gap between a Saint Emperor and a quasi-supreme is absolutely insurmountable, even if Ji Fei has mastered the 9 secrets of Immortal Path. But now, he and the Kraken can't use their cultivation base above the Saint realm. They can only suppress their cultivation base to the limit allowed by the human world. In this way, Ji Fei has the confidence to fight the Kraken. Kill. Ji Fei's momentum suddenly soared. A chaotic divine light emerged from his body. In the next moment, he transformed into 3 heads and 6 arms. You have 8 hands, I have 6 arms. Let's see who is stronger. Ji Fei roared and rushed forward, fighting fiercely with the Kraken. 6 arms against 8 arms. The entire world was shaking. Wherever the 2 figures passed, the void would collapse and shatter, forming holes in the void. The 2 experts were too powerful. They didn't need to use their Saint Realm strength. They could easily break through the void with just their physical strength. 3 heads and 6 arms, the Kraken was shocked. It has lived for countless years and achieved the Tao in ancient times. Its knowledge is extraordinary. This technique seems to be the technique of a divine ape born from heaven and earth. At this time, Ji Fei used the 3 heads and 6 arms technique. His combat strength multiplied. He immediately reversed the situation and forced the Kraken to retreat. I'll return this punch to you. Ji Fei was unstoppable. After repelling the Kraken's attack with both fists, his other fist instantly landed on the Kraken's chest. The sound of bones breaking immediately came from the Kraken's body. The Kraken was sent flying while vomiting blood. You what? Ji Fei took a step forward. Tao patterns emerged under his feet. The distance between him and the Kraken shrank in an instant. It was as if he was traveling through the void. With just 1 step, he arrived in front of the Kraken. This was not the 8 steps extreme speed, but the technique he learned from the great Baron Divine Ape, the shrinking mountain steps. This kind of great technique could display extreme speed. If this kind of great technique was cultivated to the highest realm, just 1 step would be enough to leave thousands of mountains behind. Boom! Ji Fei didn't hesitate. He punched with all his strength. 6 powerful fist energies erupted. The void in front of his fists collapsed instantly. Without any suspense, this kind of supreme power caused even the octopus monster to be shaken. It quickly retreated, not daring to face it head-on. The Kraken was sent flying again, vomiting blood. Impossible, how could I lose? The Kraken couldn't accept the fact that it was defeated by a puny human. This made it so depressed that it vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood. Roar. The Kraken tried its best to stabilize its body, then looked up to the sky and roared. 9 blood-colored Tao patterns emerged on its body. It was going to fight with Ji Fei. However, at that moment, 6 huge hands grabbed out from 6 different directions, sealing up the entire region. Every single hand was emitting terrifying energy ripples. The Kraken, who was about to fight with Ji Fei, was caught by the 6 giant hands. God knows how many bones in its body were broken in an instant. The power that it had just condensed was directly scattered. This is the great technique of the ancient Baron Divine Ape. It finally recognized the secret technique that Ji Fei used. Although it was unwilling, it couldn't change anything. It never thought that it would be defeated so thoroughly. Roar. Chapter 2468. Ji Fei used the great desolate godly ape technique and the power of the unparalleled martial body to defeat the powerful octopus monster. However, the octopus monster that Ji Fei grabbed with his star-plucking hand directly shattered its head and broke through the void. Its primordial spirit immediately escaped into the primordial chaos. Human, I will definitely come back for you. The moment the octopus monster's primordial spirit disappeared into the primordial chaos, a voice rang in Ji Fei's mind. Ji Fei could not help but be moved, because he knew that the seals set up by the supremes of the ancient era would collapse soon. At that time, the power of heaven's wrath would disappear, and the octopus monster would have nothing to worry about, and could return as a quasi-supremes. What a pity. Ji Fei shook his head. At that moment, the octopus monster's body revealed its true form. A giant blood-colored octopus floated in the air. Each of its 8 tentacles was larger than a mountain. Even though it was dead, the blood and qi in its body were still extremely powerful, and its origin energy had not dissipated. Ji Fei would naturally not miss out on such a powerful corpse. He took out the mountain and river cauldron and stored the octopus monster's body inside. The flesh and bones of a quasi-supremes were definitely great medicines in the world. They were not any weaker than supreme-grade medicines. They were extremely precious, and could be used to concoct medicines. One should know that not everyone could obtain the blood of a quasi-supremes. This kind of existence was extremely powerful, and each drop of blood contained an enormous amount of essence. It's time to go back. Even though he had offended a powerful enemy, Jiu Fei had gained quite a lot from this trip. 7 quasi-immortal medicines, a dragon palace built by the ancient ancestor dragon, and the body of a quasi-supremes. Any one of these 3 items would cause a stir in the cultivation world of the soaring dragon ancestral star. Any one of them would make everyone jealous. Especially the 7 quasi-immortal spirit herbs and the ancient ancestral dragon's divine palace. These 2 things were something that even sages would fight over, let alone ordinary cultivators. Jiu Fei used his maximum speed of 8 steps. With each step, he disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was thousands of miles away. With such speed, even the ancient golden-winged rock might not be able to catch up to him. After leaving the dragon palace, Jiu Fei headed east. Along the way, he realized that there were very few islands in this region. All he could see was the vast ocean. It wasn't until he had walked 100,000 miles away that he finally sensed the presence of life. It was an island, an incomparably huge island. The island was verdant and full of life. Not far from the coast was a primitive forest. When Jiu Fei set foot on the island, a loud roar came from the primitive forest. As soon as the beast roared, countless large birds flew out of the ancient forest. The forest was in chaos, and many fierce beasts fled in all directions. Rumble, at this moment, the depths of the primordial old forest shook. A whirlpool appeared in the depths of the primordial old forest. The countless huge birds that flew out of the primordial old forest were immediately swallowed by an incomparably strong devouring power. Seeing this, Jiu Fei's eyes lit up. He could vaguely see a huge mouth behind the whirlpool, swallowing countless large birds. There was an incomparably powerful wild beast eating, swallowing countless large birds in one gulp. Not even a feather was left behind. Jiu Fei was standing on a mountain ridge next to the coast. Although he saw this scene, he couldn't figure out what kind of savage beast it was that had devoured countless birds. Just as Jiu Fei was pondering, there was a sudden sound of water coming from the sea. He saw many silver bone spurs rising from the sea, and a huge silver creature was approaching the coast. Soon, the silver big guy walked out of the sea. It was a lizard that was covered in a thick layer of silver scales. However, unlike ordinary lizards, this lizard had a row of thick bone spurs on its back. Jiu Fei counted, there were 18 bone spurs on the back of the lizard. The bone spurs near the head and tail were shorter than the ones in the middle. After this big guy crawled out of the sea, it directly entered the primitive forest. Wherever it passed, trees kept falling. Even the towering ancient trees were directly smashed by this big guy's claws. The forest was in chaos again. Why are there so many powerful wild beasts on this island? Jiu Fei looked at the big lizard in the primitive forest and couldn't help but mutter to himself. Of course, this kind of wild beast was not a threat to him. One must know that even the kraken was not a match for him, let alone these wild beasts. However, for ordinary cultivators, these wild beasts were definitely a nightmare. Just as Jiu Fei was planning to go deep into the island to take a look, a loud eagle cry came from afar. A golden shadow flashed in the distant sky and disappeared into the depths of the island. Could it be that the legendary golden-winged rock is entrenched here? Jiu Fei looked at the golden shadow that disappeared into the depths of the island, and his face couldn't help but become a little solemn. The golden-winged rock was an extremely powerful ferocious bird from the ancient times. Above the heaven realm, the golden-winged rock race still existed. However, there was no pure-blooded golden-winged rock in the heaven realm. Jiu Fei vaguely felt that this island might be hiding some secrets. Swoosh! He directly soared into the sky from the mountain ridge and stepped into the depths of the island. With just a few steps, he disappeared at the end of the horizon. Along the way, all Jiu Fei could see were scenes of desolation. There were incomparably huge savage beasts roaring, their voices shaking the heavens and earth. There were also powerful savage beasts fighting, causing the entire forest to shake. High up in the sky, the silhouettes of ferocious birds appeared and disappeared. In the mountain ridge, Wild beasts ran amok, and ferocious birds wreaked havoc in the sky. Entering such an island made Jiu Fei feel as if he had returned to the ancient times. Roar! Just as Jiu Fei flew over a lake, a loud roar came from the lake. Then, a huge figure broke out of the water and pounced towards Jiu Fei. "You're courting death." Jiu Fei didn't dodge. He directly stomped down with his right foot, and an incomparably strong force was immediately generated. Bang! He stomped on the head of the wild beast that was charging up from below, and the beast's head directly caved in. Chapter 2469. On an incomparably large island, wild beasts and ferocious birds were running amok. It was as if the primordial world had reappeared. This shocked Jiu Fei. After killing a giant beast with a stomp, he stopped. The giant beast's corpse fell into the lake below, and the lake water was dyed red with blood. It was a soaring serpent. This kind of creature belonged to the serpent species, but it was different from normal serpents. The soaring serpent had a pair of godly wings on its back. It could soar into the sky and roam the world. This lake was the territory of the soaring serpent. Seeing that a creature dared to fly above its head, the soaring serpent was enraged. It wanted to swallow Jiu Fei alive. Unfortunately, the soaring serpent failed to swallow Jiu Fei alive. Its head was crushed by Jiu Fei's foot, and it died. This smell, just as Jiu Fei was about to leave, he suddenly smelled an extremely faint fragrance in the air. It was a medicinal fragrance. Even though it was very faint, it made Jiu Fei feel refreshed. Jiu Fei noticed that there was a small island in the middle of the lake below, and the medicinal fragrance was coming from the small island at the center of the lake. "I didn't think that there would be a rare divine medicine growing here." Jiu Fei was a little surprised. It wasn't strange for there to be a divine medicine on a desolate island. This was because this island was full of vitality and the spiritual energy was much denser than other places. Moreover, Jiu Fei felt that there were a few places on this island that were emitting powerful spiritual energy. Whoosh! Jiu Fei descended from the sky and landed on the small island in the middle of the lake. Jiu Fei was shocked when he saw the stalk of godly herb, because the stalk of spiritual herb had actually taken root in the eye of fire in the middle of the island at the heart of the lake. It was a fire eye with a radius of about 10 jong. Inside the fire eye was tumbling lava, and the godly herb was rooted in the lava, breathing in and out the pure fire chi of the earth vein. Water and fire coexist. This place, Jiu Fei couldn't help but be shocked. It seemed that the soaring serpent didn't stay here for the divine medicine. This place was a treasure ground of yin and yang. Water was yin, fire was yang. In the middle of the lake, there was a fire eye. Yin and yang mixed together and nurtured fortune. The soaring serpent wanted to obtain the treasure that was nurtured in this treasure ground. The divine herb that had taken root in the fire eye was a rare fire lotus. This fire lotus had probably been growing in the fire eye for at least several thousand years. Although it was only a foot tall, the fire-type spiritual energy contained within it was incomparably powerful. Around the fire eye, there was a simple formation set up by the soaring dragon. Such a formation was naturally not difficult for Jiu Fei. He easily removed the Dao markings that were imprinted around the fire eye, before walking in with a single step. Jiu Fei arrived above the fire eye and extended his hand to pluck the fire lotus. Just as his palm was about to touch the fiery lotus that was rooted in the magma, his heart suddenly moved. At this moment, a scarlet flame instantly broke through the magma and pierced towards the center of his eyebrows. Jiu Fei tilted his head and dodged the ray of light. Then, he grabbed the ray of light with his right hand. It was a tail that looked like a red spear. It was covered in red scales and emitted waves of heat. "Come out!" Jiu Fei shouted and pulled out the living being that was hiding in the magma. At the same time, he extended his left hand and plucked the fire lotus that was rooted in the magma. Roar! A furious roar resounded as an incomparably huge savage beast was pulled out of the magma by Jiu Fei. When Jiu Fei saw the beast hiding in the magma, he could not help but be taken aback. It was a giant red snake with wings on its back and no claws. How could this be? Jiu Fei's heart skipped a beat. This winged snake had a huge background. It was one of the 12 ancient mythical beasts, the soaring serpent. Just then, the soaring serpent whose tail was grabbed by Jiu Fei had already turned around and opened its mouth wide, biting towards Jiu Fei. The sharp teeth within its mouth were enough to send chills down one's spine. The savage beast that Jiu Fei had pulled out from the magma flame eye was exactly the same as the soaring serpent, one of the 12 ancient divine beasts. Jiu Fei did not dare to be careless. With a shake of his right hand, a tremendous force burst forth, and he swung the savage beast with all his might. With that, the beast could no longer bite Jiu Fei. Roar! The beast struggled and its roar shook the heavens and the earth. The entire mountain range shook under its roar. An almost transparent red flame appeared on its body, trying to burn Jiu Fei to death. Within the almost transparent red flame, Dao patterns could be vaguely seen. This was a type of Dao fire that could burn everything in the world. Even the void was warped and destroyed by the heat. However, Jiu Fei completely ignored this Dao fire. He grabbed the beast's tail and swung it around. Go! Jiu Fei shouted. He loosened his grip and threw the beast towards a mountain beside the lake. Boom! With a loud bang, the crimson savage beast smashed into the mountain ridge. The towering mountain peak was broken in the middle and then fell from the sky. Rumble! Dust flew everywhere and chaos filled the sky. That savage beast directly smashed into a mountain peak and was then buried under the rubble. Isn't this the legendary soaring serpent? Jiu Fei was a little taken aback when he saw this. One must know that every single one of the 12 great ancient divine beasts was exceptionally powerful. There was no way they would be so weak. Just as Jiu Fei was pondering, the rubble beside the lake emitted rays of fire. The rocks and soil were melting and turning into lava. An extremely strong power of fire burst out. Countless rocks turned into a magma lake. A huge red snake with a pair of wings on its back crawled out of that magma lake. Whoosh! The red soaring serpent flapped its wings and immediately turned into a ray of fire. It charged towards Jiu Fei. It was so fast that even Jiu Fei could not help but be shocked. This savage beast was truly enraged. It was the king of this area, and the soaring dragon was merely a savage beast that it used to guard the gate. This little creature actually dared to offend it and take away the divine medicine that it had been guarding for thousands of years. This caused it to go crazy. Boom! The soaring serpent rushed over murderously. It opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of divine fire of the great path. The fire instantly covered the entire sky, turning the sky above the lake into a sea of fire. Within the fire, flame-shaped patterns appeared faintly. They emitted terrifying heat, burning the space until it collapsed and was annihilated. It was extremely frightening. The fire of the way of extreme yang is born from the place where yin and yang meet. Jiu Fei muttered to himself. His eyes lit up. At the same time, a layer of chaotic divine light appeared on his body. Within the chaotic divine light, there were faint golden spots of divine light flashing. The fire of the way of extreme yang that came from all directions was immediately blocked by the layer of divine light that appeared on Jiu Fei's body. It could not get close to him. Chapter 2470. On an uninhabited island, in a place where yin and yang converged and water and fire blended, Jiu Fei encountered an extremely powerful beast. This beast was one of the 12 ancient mythological beasts, the soaring serpent. The soaring serpent was the spirit of fire. No one knew why it had appeared here, because such a place could not have given birth to such a mythological beast. Rumble! At that moment, a great fire raged on the surface of the lake. The soaring serpent spat out a mouthful of yang flames that enveloped Jiu Fei. It wanted to burn Jiu Fei to death. However, even the extreme yang wei fire could not pose any threat to Jiu Fei. A layer of chaotic divine light surged from his body and blocked the wei fire from reaching him. This was natural flames of the wei, and the patterns within the flames were congenital patterns that had evolved from heaven and earth. Jiu Fei knew that the soaring serpent had obtained an opportunity here. It had obtained the yang true fire that had been born from the place where yin and yang converged. It had refined it and integrated it into its source of power. Not everyone could encounter such an opportunity. Jiu Fei did not feel that it was a pity, because divine items that were naturally born from heaven and earth could only be obtained by those who were fated. It was good enough that he had obtained a fire lotus. That fire lotus contained a young fire essence, but it was also a rare divine medicine in the world. However, it was a pity that Jiyu Fei had no place to plant this fire lotus. It should be known that the fire lotus had to take root where the young flames of the way were and absorb the young fire essence in order to survive. However, Jiyu Fei had a feeling that there was still something in this place where fire and water blended that the soaring serpent had not obtained. At that moment, Jiyu Fei made a move. His large hand covered the sky and enveloped the young flames of the way. He then refined all of them into the sky-covering hand. Even the Tao patterns that had been born naturally were destroyed by his large hand. This was the terror of the indestructible martial body of chaos. Every move had great power. The power of the martial body was so strong that it could almost crush everything. The soaring serpent was shocked and quickly retreated. However, after the large hand in the sky had destroyed the young flames of the way, it turned and slapped down on the retreating soaring serpent. Bang! With a muffled sound, the huge hand fell. The soaring serpent suffered a great impact and was directly smacked down from the sky by the huge hand. With a plop, it fell into the large lake below. The lake suddenly became steaming hot. The water in the lake seemed to be boiling, giving off steam and bubbles. The lake didn't evaporate. Jiyu Fei looked at the boiling lake below and could not help but feel a little surprised. It should be known that the soaring serpent's body emitted the fire of the Way of Yang. This kind of fire of the Way could theoretically burn everything in the world, even immortal divine materials. In the lake below, although the water level was dropping rapidly, it had not evaporated. The fire eye gave birth to the supreme Yang Dao fire. Could it be that the water eye also gave birth to a divine substance that can contend against the supreme Yang Dao fire? Jiyu Fei muttered to himself, and then his eyes lit up. Boom! Just as Jiyu Fei was pondering, the surface of the lake below suddenly exploded. A clump of fire broke through the surface of the water and shot up into the sky, arriving before Jiyu Fei. Who the hell are you? A wave of divine will came from the soaring serpent's body, and a voice sounded in Jiyu Fei's mind. The soaring serpent was shocked and angry. This was the first time it had encountered a powerful creature that could suppress it. Although there were other extremely powerful creatures on Savage Island, none of them could make it feel afraid. It had to be admitted that the creature in front of it terrified the soaring serpent. Have you never seen someone like me? Jiyu Fei asked the soaring serpent, feeling a little strange. This was a communication between divine wills. There was no need for words, and the other party could understand what he meant. This was the most direct communication. It was as if there was a voice in the other party's mind. No, I haven't. The soaring serpent thought about it and said, Have you never left this island? Jiyu Fei looked at the soaring serpent opposite him, paying attention to its reaction. Leave this place? Why do I have to leave this place? Give me back my things. The soaring serpent stared at Jiyu Fei and said. The extreme young flames on its body rose. As it flapped its wings, countless Tao patterns flowed on its wings. You mean this divine medicine? As Jiyu Fei spoke, he flipped his right hand and a divine medicine that seemed to be dancing with divine flames appeared in his hand. Wisps of fire qi curled around the divine medicine. This thing is called a divine medicine. The soaring serpent looked at the fire lotus divine medicine in Jiyu Fei's hand with a blank look in its eyes. It did not seem to know what the fire lotus divine medicine was, but it had instinctively protected this fire lotus divine medicine for thousands of years. This fellow did not seem to know anything. Jiyu Fei was shocked to find that the soaring serpent seemed very innocent. This is called a divine medicine. I have many of these things. If you listen to me, I will return this divine medicine to you. I will also give you more divine medicines. Jiyu Fei said with a smile. Are you telling the truth? The soaring serpent's eyes lit up when it heard this. As soon as it was born, the fire lotus had already taken root in the fire eye magma. It knew very well that the fire lotus contained a huge amount of essence qi. Now that it heard Jiyu Fei say that he would give it more divine medicines like the fire lotus, It was as happy as a child. The hostility on its body disappeared immediately. This fellow seemed to be easier to trick than he had imagined. Jiu Fei had not expected the soaring serpent to be so easy to deal with. Although the fire lotus divine medicine was rare, it was nothing to him. If he could use a fire lotus divine medicine to trick a powerful creature with limitless potential who could even become an existence like the 12 ancient divine beasts, it would be worth it for Jiu Fei. Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? As Jiu Fei spoke, the stalk of divine medicine in his hand flew up and flew towards the soaring serpent. You are a good person. The soaring serpent happily opened its mouth and swallowed the fire lotus divine medicine into its body. It did not want to eat the divine medicine, it wanted to hide it inside its body. Next, under Jiu Fei's guidance, Jiu Fei quickly found out what he wanted to know. It turned out that this soaring serpent was not the ancient divine beast that dominated the heavens and earth. It was a descendant of the soaring serpent. This soaring serpent was a creature born from a divine egg. In ancient times, a peerless expert of the flying serpent clan had placed a divine egg into one of the fire eyes when the great calamity arrived. It had been nourished by the extreme young Dao fire in the fire eyes for countless years. This soaring serpent was only born a few thousand years ago. Chapter 2471. After taming this soaring serpent, Jiu Fei was in a good mood. One should know that this soaring serpent was a pure-blooded soaring serpent, a descendant of an ancient divine beast. If a pure-blooded soaring serpent were to fully mature, it would be able to slay a saint. This soaring serpent was actually equivalent to an 8 or 9-year-old human child. It was very innocent and easy to fool. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Jiu Fei to tame this soaring serpent. Ancient divine beasts had a long lifespan. This soaring serpent was still in its infancy and was far from fully maturing. Even so, Jiu Fei felt that it was worth it. He already had a plan in mind to raise a divine beast. Are you looking for something? At this moment, the soaring serpent saw Jiu Fei wandering around on the lake, seemingly trying to sense something. It was very happy that Jiu Fei was willing to return the fiery lotus to it. You probably wouldn't understand even if I told you. Jiu Fei nodded. Who says I don't know? The soaring serpent said proudly. What? You know? Jiu Fei was a little surprised. Of course. Those guys on the island often come here and disturb my training. I hate them and even fought with them. The soaring serpent said. You can chase those annoying guys away. Jiu Fei couldn't help but look at the soaring serpent in a new light. Those guys on the island were extremely powerful. They were definitely the strongest beasts and birds in the human world. Are you doubting my combat strength? The soaring serpent was a little unhappy. No, why would I doubt your combat strength? I'm just a little surprised. Jiu Fei quickly said. I'm very powerful. The soaring serpent said with its head held high. I know. You're invincible. Then tell me, where is the thing I'm looking for? The soaring serpent's innocent nature was easily tricked by Jiu Fei. After being praised by Jiu Fei, the soaring serpent immediately became complacent. Ever since I was born, I sensed a very annoying force nearby. The thing you're looking for should be that thing, right? Soaring serpent said after some thought. As it turned out, there was a water hole hidden at the bottom of the lake. It was the water hole of the lunar true water. This was the divine substance derived from the place where water and fire converged. Extreme Yang Dao flame and extreme Yin true water, these two divine treasures could only be chanced upon by luck. Especially for fire and water element cultivators, if they were able to obtain these two divine treasures, then they would be able to transform their physiques, allowing them to cultivate with twice the results with half the effort, and they would even have the possibility of becoming a supreme being. A long time ago, Jiu Fei had come up with a plan, which was to have 5 disciples with metal, wood, water, fire, and earth constitutions. Now, his eldest disciple, Jiu Zhong, had the metal element martial body. Although Kai Long was a fire element true dragon, unfortunately, he was not a human. It was impossible for him to cultivate a martial body and become a martial artist. The third disciple, Yarrow Yu, had a water element martial body, but her cultivation was much inferior to Jiyu Zhong, Kai Long, and the others. If she had the lunar true water, Yarrow Yu's cultivation would increase very quickly. Jiyu Fei was determined to obtain the lunar true water. Without hesitation, after the soaring serpent told Jiyu Fei the exact location, Jiyu Fei immediately took action. He opened up the water channel, entered the lake, and headed for the water hole. The soaring serpent seemed to have a natural hatred for the lunar true water. It did not enter the lake with Jiyu Fei, but returned to the fire hole on the small island in the lake. It had long been persuaded by Jiyu Fei to leave the savage island with Jiyu Fei and see the outside world. Before leaving, the soaring serpent had to make some preparations. There were still things to be taken from the fire hole. The divine substance derived from the place where yin and yang met was not as simple as the extreme yang Dao flame. At this time, Jiyu Fei had already entered 1,000 feet deep into the lake. The deeper he went, the more intense the cold qi became. In the end, the void seemed to be frozen by the cold qi. However, this degree of cold qi was nothing to Jiyu Fei. Soon, Jiyu Fei reached the bottom of the lake. There was no water hole at the bottom of the lake, but he could sense an extremely cold aura coming from under his feet. The water hole of the place where yin and yang met was not like the fire hole, which appeared directly on the ground. Instead, it was hidden in the depths of the bottom of the lake. One visible and one hidden, one yin and one yang. Interesting. Jiyu Fei smiled. The powerful aura that emanated from his body blocked all the surrounding lake water 3 feet away from him, making it difficult for him to get close. Then, he directly broke through the bottom of the lake. The moment Jiyu Fei broke through the bottom of the lake, an extremely powerful cold qi immediately leaked out from the bottom of the lake. In just an instant, the entire bottom of the lake was frozen. Then, the entire lake was frozen by the cold qi that leaked out from the bottom of the lake. Jiyu Fei was no exception. He was instantly frozen at the bottom of the lake, but the void within 3 feet of him was not frozen. What a powerful cold qi! Jiyu Fei felt the cold qi coming from all around him. The fact that he could feel the cold was enough to show how terrifying the cold qi that leaked out from the depths of the lake was. If it was an ordinary saint, he would probably have been frozen. The cold qi that was naturally produced by the world could freeze the world. What's happening? At this time, the soaring serpent in the depths of the fire hole was also startled. It was very surprised, but then it understood that it was probably caused by the big brother that it had just acknowledged. I have to hurry up too. The soaring serpent continued to attack, trying with all its might to take away an item in front of it. It was a piece of fist-sized godly metal that shone brightly. That piece of godly metal was covered with countless Dao patterns. Those were natural Dao patterns that were naturally produced by the world. They were ancient and mysterious. This was an immortal divine material that could be mentioned in the same breath as the metal of the 9 heaven stars. It seemed to contain the great path of the world, and there were Dao patterns circling around it. At the same time, Jiyu Fei directly used his absolute strength to break through the ice seal and continued deeper. After passing through the thick layer, he entered a huge space. In this space, time seemed to have stopped. The lunar water essence here was so thick that it was almost liquefied. In the center of this space, there was a ball of godly light floating. Within the godly light, there was actually the shadow of a dragon. What? When Jiyu Fei saw this dragon shadow, he couldn't help but be shocked. A weak aura of life came from the dragon shadow in the ball of godly light. It's actually nurturing life. Jiyu Fei was extremely shocked. The dragon shadow in the ball of godly light was devouring the surrounding lunar water essence. It was like a beating heart, and the ball of godly light was flickering rhythmically. This is a great opportunity. Chapter 2472. In the depths of the earth, in a huge space, the lunar pure water essence was so thick that it was almost liquefied. However, this was not enough to shock Jiyu Fei. What really shocked Jiyu Fei was the fact that there was a ball of divine light, about 100 feet in diameter, floating in the void. Within the divine light, there was a vague shadow of a dragon, and a faint aura of life was emanating from it. That's right, Jiyu Fei could clearly sense the life aura coming from that dragon shadow. The creation of heaven and earth, the birth of life, This, Jiyu Fei was dumbfounded. He did not expect such a thing to be nurtured in the water eye of the earth. The ball of divine light was the innate Tao fetus, and the dragon shadow inside was the innate life form nurtured by the Tao fetus. However, to be precise, the dragon shadow nurtured in the divine light was not a real life form. It was just the beginning of a life. The dragon shadow was actually the condensation of the innate Tao pattern formed by the lunar pure water essence Qi. If given enough time, the dragon shadow in the innate Tao fetus could transform into a real life form and give birth to an innate lunar cold dragon. Unfortunately, Jiyu Fei didn't want to wait for a long period of time before plucking this fruit of the Tao that was born naturally. Without hesitation, Jiyu Fei opened the inner world in the mudpill palace between his eyebrows and began to absorb the lunar pure water essence Qi that filled this space. This energy could not appear in the inner world in the Dantian. It should be known that if this energy appeared in the Divine Land, it would freeze the entire Divine Land, and all the living creatures in the Divine Land would be frozen to death. However, the inner world in the mudpill palace between his eyebrows did not have any living creatures, so it was the most suitable place to absorb the lunar pure water essence Qi. At this time, the inner world in Jiyu Fei's mudpill palace had expanded to a radius of thousands of miles. Because the divine spring of life was nourishing this inner world, it was lush and full of vitality. However, there were very few living creatures in this inner world. There were only a dozen spiritual herbs planted around the divine spring of life. These spiritual herbs were obtained by Jiyu Fei in the past, so they were not rare spiritual herbs. However, after being nourished by the divine spring of life for thousands of years, some of these spiritual herbs had already turned into divine herbs. This was something that Jiyu Fei did not expect when he was planting the spiritual herbs. In fact, he rarely paid attention to the inner world he had opened up in his mudpill palace. He even rarely used the Hell Dao, because the inner world and the Hell Dao in his mudpill palace could not compare to the divine land he had refined into his Dantian. At this time, a large hole appeared in the sky above the inner world in Jiyu Fei's mudpill palace, and the lunar pure water essence Qi surged in through it. Soon, the thousands of miles of inner world was covered with a layer of white frost. Flowers, plants, and trees were all covered with frost, and there were icicles hanging down from the tree trunks. The streams and lakes were frozen, and an extremely cold aura enveloped the entire inner world. Outside the inner world, Jiyu Fei was doing his best to absorb the massive amount of lunar pure water essence Qi into the inner world in the mudpill palace between his eyebrows. The lunar pure water essence Qi in the lunar watery eye was rapidly decreasing. It was as if a bottomless black hole had appeared in front of Jiyu Fei, devouring the lunar pure water essence Qi from all directions. Several hours later, the lunar pure water essence Qi in the depths of the earth was completely absorbed by Jiyu Fei's inner world. Even the ball of divine light was absorbed by Jiyu Fei's inner world. Rumble. The inner world in Jiyu Fei's mudpill palace was shaking. A ball of divine light descended from the sky and floated in this corner of the world. The endless lunar pure water essence that originally filled this corner of the world immediately gathered from all directions and gathered around the ball of divine light. This congenital embryo of Tao was automatically swallowing the surrounding lunar pure water essence Qi. The entire inner world in Jiyu Fei's mudpill palace was frozen, except for the divine spring of life in the center of this space. The dozens of spirit herbs planted around the divine spring of life were also spared from being frozen. After absorbing the lunar pure water essence Qi, cracks immediately appeared on the surface of the water eye. Then, with a loud boom, the entire ground collapsed. Jiyu Fei soared into the sky, broke through the collapsed ground, and rushed out from the depths of the earth. Rumble. The frozen lake shook violently. Then, a figure broke through the thousands of feet thick ice and rushed out from the bottom of the lake. The divine substance produced by the place where fire and water met was taken away by Jiyu Fei. This was equivalent to breaking the balance of this place and causing a great disaster. The lake caved in, and a series of bottomless fissures appeared on the ground. Nearby mountains collapsed one after another, and the area within a radius of thousands of miles was shaken. Such a movement was immediately sensed by several powerful creatures on the desolate island. Swoosh! A golden light rushed out from a towering mountain in the depths of the desolate island and flew towards the place where fire and water met. In the golden light, there was a big golden bird. Roar. In another region, an earth-shattering roar came from an abyss filled with murderous aura. A silver-colored creature rushed out of the abyss and disappeared into the void. Boom. Thousands of miles away from the area where Jiu Fei was, a mountain suddenly exploded. A powerful creature hidden in the black gas rushed out and instantly disappeared into the void. At this time, in the place where fire and water met, countless ferocious birds and wild beasts were scrambling to escape. Even the extremely powerful wild beasts were no exception. They were all fleeing from this area. Roar. At this time, a roar came from the fire eye. The soaring serpent rushed out of the fire eye. At the moment when the soaring serpent rushed out, the entire fire eye also collapsed. Water and fire collided, forming the four original powers of earth, water, wind, and fire. The area was collapsing and collapsing. The power of water and fire was completely out of control. Little serpent, hand over the thing in the fire eye. At this time, a divine thought came from afar. Then, a golden light flashed in the void at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, it arrived nearby and pressed towards the soaring serpent. You again. When the soaring serpent saw the newcomer, it was instantly enraged. It was a big golden bird. Golden light flowed around its body as if it was cast from pure gold. There were golden runes faintly visible on its body. This is Chapter 2473. Rumble. The heavens and earth shook. That golden bird was extremely powerful. It hovered in the sky like a golden sun, radiating golden light. Within the golden light, golden runes could be faintly seen. This was an extremely powerful, ferocious bird. It displayed the limits of the human world, but it did not exceed the limits of the human world. The golden bird was in a very mysterious state. It was between a sacred bird and a quasi-sacred bird. Its powerful aura spread out, covering a radius of 100,000 miles. Even the most ferocious beasts in the depths of the mountain were speechless at this moment. They were all terrified to the extreme, as if the end of the world had come. Boom! At this moment, a bright divine flame appeared on the soaring serpent's body. It stared at the golden bird in the sky and a cold murderous aura spread out from its body. You're just a little worm. You dare to act fierce in front of me? The golden bird transmitted its divine sense. It did not seem to care about the soaring serpent at all. I wonder who dared to come here and act wildly before. Who chased them away? The soaring serpent said coldly. It stared at the golden bird in the sky. Its eyes flickered with an ominous glint. Fire runes flowed on its body, and there was a kind of Tao lingering around it. I didn't kill you last time because I wanted you to protect this place. Now, you actually dared to destroy this place. What's the point of keeping you alive? The golden bird was also filled with murderous aura. One should know that the divine substance nurtured in the land of fire and water was something that even a sacred-level existence would covet. This golden bird had long been thinking about the divine substance nurtured in this divine land. However, the divine substance was still in the process of nurturing and had not reached the level of perfection. The divine substance was lacking. This was the reason why the golden bird did not attack the soaring serpent. In fact, the giants on the desolate island were all staring at this treasured land. At this moment, a mass of black chi rushed over from afar. Within the black chi, a figure could be faintly seen. Another giant of the desolate island had arrived. Powerful energy waves spread out in all directions. The entire world seemed like it was going to collapse. The creature in the black chi was extremely powerful. You're here too. The soaring serpent also recognized the creature within the black gas. Not good, these guys had all jumped out. This was definitely not a good thing for it. At this time, Jiu Fei looked at this scene coldly. Just as the creature hidden in the black chi arrived, a silver light flashed in another direction. A ray of silver light rushed over from the distance, and everywhere it passed by, the space trembled. A powerful aura spread out, causing all the beasts in the area to tremble. This was a silver-colored creature that was covered in a thick layer of silver scales. There were rays of silver light swirling around it, and its blood-colored eyes scanned the surroundings, causing one's heart to palpitate. Damn, there are actually 3 such powerful creatures on this savage island. Jiu Fei was slightly surprised. These 3 creatures were actually Saint Realm beings. If it wasn't for the fact that the power of heaven's wrath still existed in the mortal world, these 3 creatures would have no choice but to seal their Saint Realm cultivations. Otherwise, the entire world would probably be unable to endure their existences. Why is there another little guy? The silver creature stared at Jiu Fei, a bloody light flashing in its eyes. There are no humans on this island. Could this human have come from the outside world? Within the black chi, 2 green spots of light shone out. The creature that was hidden in the black mist was mumbling to itself. Every single living being of the Saint Realm was an existence that had lived for countless of years. The knowledge of these living beings wasn't something that the soaring serpent could compare with. The creature hidden in the black mist had already figured out Jiu Fei's background. How many years has it been? To think that there would be another human who would come to this island. Since you're here, there's no need for you to leave anymore. The words of the silver creature were extremely cold as its blood-red eyes scanned Jiu Fei from left to right. I only want that thing on this little worm. I don't care about anything else. The golden bird replied. Its attention was focused on the soaring serpent the entire time, and it did not even bother to look at Jiu Fei once. In its eyes, this puny little human was nothing. It could just ignore him completely. Mitch, a cold laugh rang out from within the black mist. Who wouldn't covet something on the soaring serpent's body? To think that the golden bird wanted to keep it all for itself. Dream on. You want the supreme young legendary item while I want the extreme yin true water. Little worm, don't tell me that you're even going to take away the extreme yin true water. The silver creature looked over at the soaring serpent and said, Are you guys really going to treat me as if I don't exist? At this moment, the creature hidden in the black mist spoke up. Big bird, how about we join forces? The silver creature looked up at the golden bird in the sky and said, Not interested. The golden bird rejected immediately. There was no way it would join forces with anyone else. After all, it couldn't trust these guys at all. The only person it could trust was itself. Hee hee. The silver creature chuckled out and said nothing more. This is infuriating. Do you guys really think that I'm a pushover? At this moment, the soaring serpent spoke up. To think that these guys wouldn't even take it seriously. This was something that had it both shocked and enraged. It wasn't arrogant enough to think that it could take on the 3 powerful beings of the barren island all by itself. The ground was still collapsing and shaking. Mountains continued to crumble and crumble. The mountains were in a mess. It was as terrifying as the end of the world. However, such a scene was nothing in the eyes of Jiu Fei and the others. Little worm, your background isn't simple. It's mine now. As the creature in the black mist spoke, it made its move. The black mist surged and condensed into a giant hand that grabbed at the soaring serpent. Boom! Boom! The giant hand instantly grew larger, covering the entire sky. Above the giant hand, countless runes appeared, weaving together into mysterious Tao diagrams. Go to hell, all of you. The soaring serpent was truly angry. Its temperament was very simple. As long as it was an enemy, it would kill them directly. As it flapped its wings, rays of fire rushed out from them, turning into divine spears that pierced towards the giant hand that was grabbing down from the sky. Every divine spear was condensed from the special Tao patterns of the soaring serpent clan and was extremely powerful. Moreover, the soaring serpent had refined the yang flames of the way of the land of water and fire, making its magic even more terrifying and powerful. The power it displayed was even more terrifying. PH, you're just an ant trying to shake a tree. What's the use? The creature in the black mist sneered. The giant hand trembled, and the power it unleashed instantly multiplied. It actually shattered the divine spears of fire that were piercing towards it. Bang! The giant hand descended. The soaring serpent cried out in surprise as it was knocked down from the sky by the giant hand. Saint-level creatures were extremely powerful. Even if they couldn't undo their seals and restore their cultivation, they were still not something that the soaring serpent could contend with. The soaring serpent smashed into the chaotic ground below. The power of the earth, water, fire, and wind swallowed it up in an instant. It's been a long time since I've eaten humans. I really miss the delicious human blood. The silver creature grinned hideously as it walked towards Jiu Fei. It was a humanoid creature, but its entire body was covered in a layer of silver scales. It had a pair of blood-red eyes. Its body was enveloped by a powerful aura of malice. Within that aura, figures could be seen faintly. This was the manifestation of the resentment of countless living beings that had been killed by this creature. It was hard to imagine how many living beings this silver creature had killed to be able to gather such a powerful aura of malice. Since you want to die, I'll grant your wish. Jiu Fei looked at the silver creature that was walking towards him step by step and suddenly smiled. Haha, the silver creature couldn't help but laugh when it heard this. It was as if it had heard the funniest thing in the world. This puny human actually said that he wanted to kill it. At this moment, the aura on Jiu Fei's body was completely retracted. No one could see through him at all. Not even the 3 saint-level creatures. Ever since Jiu Fei had cultivated the all-powers return to origin technique imparted to him by the mountain and river cauldron, no one could see through him anymore. Even those with a higher cultivation state than him were no exception. Your courage is commendable. To think that you would dare to say something as such in front of me. As the silver creature spoke, it had already arrived before Jiu Fei. It was curious. To think that this human didn't show any signs of panic when facing it. Could this guy have been scared silly by it? What's there to be afraid of? Jiu Fei expressionlessly looked at the silver creature in front of him. He was extremely calm. At this moment, the silver creature hadn't expected that this puny human would be this calm even in the face of death. Could it be that this human knew that he was about to die and was willing to go all out? Living beings like the human race were really weird. Some of them were afraid of death. For the sake of survival, they would resort to unscrupulous methods. In fact, they would even strike out at their own kind. However, there were some humans who were unafraid of death. For the sake of others, they could even throw away their own lives. Very well. I'll let you die a quick death. As the silver creature spoke, it reached out with its sharp claws and grabbed at the top of Jiu Fei's head. Suddenly, Jiu Fei raised his head. His eyes shone brightly as he looked at the face of the silver creature. Within his eyes, there were some Dao patterns that seemed to be weaving together. What? The silver creature was taken aback. To think that this human's eyes would be so blinding that it could barely open its eyes. T. In the next moment, the silver creature felt a chill rise up its back. It couldn't help but shiver, and then it directly retreated. This human before it wasn't simple at all. It had been too careless. However, at this moment, Jiu Fei made his move. With just a single step, he appeared before the silver creature. His body was practically plastered onto the body of the silver creature. Roar. The silver creature was truly taken aback right now. It howled out in rage as it clawed out at the human before it. On its sharp claws, 10 beams of light that were as sharp as swords shot out, tearing the void apart. However, before the silver creature's claws could even reach Jiu Fei's body, Jiu Fei's fist had already landed on the chest of the silver creature. Ugh. Chapter 2474. What? The silver living being could not have imagined that this puny little human before it would be this strong. To think that he could punch through its body with a single punch. How could this be? The golden bird and the mysterious living being within the black mist were completely dumbfounded by this scene. They knew very well that the silver living being's cultivation state and battle prowess was no weaker than theirs. You think that you're all high and mighty. But, to think that you're the one who's actually an ant, huh? Jiu Fei remarked. Just then, his right arm jerked as an incomparably strong force burst forth from his arm. Bam! The silver living being's body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Even someone as strong as it couldn't even fight back against Jiu Fei at all. The physical body of a sage-state living being was so strong that it was unimaginable. It could even go against a sage weapon. However, Jiu Fei was able to shatter the physical body of a sage-state living being with ease. This fella. The golden bird and the mysterious living being within the black mist could not help but feel extremely shocked at this scene. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that this human that they had completely ignored would actually be a supreme powerful being. It was only at this moment that they came to a realization. Since this human could appear here, how could he possibly be weak? If he were, he would have been killed by the soaring serpent a long time ago. Still trying to escape. Just then, Jiu Fei hollered out. Reaching out with his right hand, he grabbed a ball of silver light that had rushed out of the blood mist. The silver light wrapped around a tiny figure. This was the spirit of the silver living being. Even if an existence of this level were to have its physical body destroyed and turned into a blood mist, it wouldn't die that easily. The only way to truly kill a living being like this was to sever its spirit. Don't kill me. Within the silver light, the tiny figure emitted a wave of consciousness. An extremely horrified voice rang out in Jiu Fei's mind. Too late. Jiu Fei remained unmoved. He directly crushed the ball of silver divine light in his hand. Pop! The figure in the ball of light dissipated. Just like that, Jiu Fei easily destroyed the silver holy stage creature in both body and soul. The golden bird could not help but gasp at the sight of this. Even the mysterious creature hidden in the black mist was extremely shocked. When the golden bird saw Jiu Fei's gaze sweeping over it, it couldn't help but be angered. It initially thought that a puny human could be squashed to death with a single finger. However, who would have thought that this puny human was actually pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Fellow Daoist, your methods are impressive. The golden bird stared at Jiu Fei and said. The golden light emitted from its eyes was dozens of feet long. Boom. At this moment, a muffled sound suddenly came from below. A ray of fire broke through the layers of water, fire, and wind directly rushed out from the ground. Big brother, help me kill them all. The soaring serpent came to Jiu Fei's side and spoke to Jiu Fei with a murderous look in his eyes. Divine flames rose all over his body and the aura of the extreme Yang Wei fire spread from his body. That's easy. Jiu Fei nodded. Friend, we have no grudges against each other in the past. Why must we fight each other to the death? The golden bird said. This human was ridiculously powerful and it did not want to fight him. After all, the silver holy stage creature was killed by a single punch from this human. Chimph, you're afraid. Hurry up and kneel down and beg for mercy. Perhaps I can ask my big brother to spare your lives, the soaring serpent said loudly. It already knew what had just happened. The big brother that it recognized was so powerful that he could kill the silver holy stage creature with a single punch. With such a powerful big brother, there was nowhere in the human realm that it could not go. A cold snicker came from within the black mist. However, the creature in the black mist did not say anything. Instead, a powerful intent to fight emanated from within the black mist. What? You want to fight my big brother? Come. Let me see what you're made of first. With Jiu Fei's support, the soaring serpent straightened its back and directly challenged the creature in the black mist. If you're courting death, I'll grant you your wish. A cold voice rang out from within the black mist. The creature that was hidden within the black mist was enraged. A chilling killing intent appeared between the heaven and earth. Under the impact of this killing intent, the surrounding temperature plunged rapidly. TSK, come at me if you've got what it takes. See if I don't beat the *T out of you with a single punch, the soaring serpent said arrogantly. Phew! The moment the words of the soaring serpent were heard, a dark beam of light pierced through the black mist and slashed out at the soaring serpent. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived before the soaring serpent. The soaring serpent was taken aback. With a single thought, a series of fire patterns burst forth from its body, forming a shield of fire in front of it. That dark beam of light cleaved down on the shield of fire that was made up of fire patterns. Instantly, it broke through the shield of fire and struck the body of the soaring serpent. The soaring serpent cried out in a weird manner. Blood splashed out as it was sent flying thousands of feet away by the dark beam of light. A few feet long wound appeared on its body, as though it had been slashed by a godly weapon. The soaring serpent was both shocked and furious. It originally thought that it would be able to exchange a few blows with the person in the black mist. It did not expect that the other party would almost cut it in half. Only now did it realize how big of a gap there was between it and these leaders. The golden bird was not lying. If these people wanted to kill it, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. Seeing this, Jiu Fei's heart trembled. These people were not weak. The person in the black mist was definitely much stronger than the silver creature. Big brother, the soaring serpent rushed over from afar. Like a wronged child, it wanted Jiu Fei to stand up for it. Friend, I think it's best if you don't interfere with the matters of the deserted island. The voice of the golden bird was heard. Like an ancient golden crow, its entire body shone with golden light. It looked like a golden sun hanging high in the sky. You hurt my brother. I have no choice but to interfere. Jiu Fei walked forward. Like before, his body did not emit any sort of energy. He looked just like a normal living being. However, nobody dared to look down on him. What's the point of spouting so much bullshit? This human just wants to get his hands on the treasure that was born from this place. Within the black mist, the mysterious living being spoke coldly. As it spoke, the mysterious living being made a move. The black mist rumbled as a gigantic hand appeared in the sky. With a terrifying amount of energy, it slapped towards Jiu Fei. Then let's fight. Chapter 2475. Rumble. A great battle erupted. A pitch-black hand instantly enveloped the entire world before slamming downwards. Terrifying ripples of energy radiated from the hand. The entire world suddenly turned into a pitch-black night. It was actually sealed off by the hand, isolating it from the outside world. The creature in the black mist did not dare to be careless. It used its full strength. Of course, it did not dare to exceed the limits allowed by the human world. However, existences like this all possessed some kind of secret technique that allowed them to enter a wondrous state. They seemed to be able to unleash the battle prowess of a saint at any time. The soaring serpent's expression changed when it saw that the opponent was able to cover the sky with one hand. The strength of the opponent had already exceeded its imagination. The Lord of the Barren Island was not someone with an undeserved reputation. The powerful aura from the creature in the black mist made the soaring serpent's heart palpitate. Break. At this moment, Jiu Fei bellowed and punched upwards with all his strength. Chaotic force erupted from his body and gathered towards his right fist. Buzz. As Jiu Fei punched, the entire space began to tremble, producing a rumbling sound. Pitch-black spatial cracks appeared around his fist. Boom. It was as if a chaotic divine sun had appeared in the sky as Jiu Fei's fist collided with the black hand that had enveloped the entire world. With a loud sound, the black hand shook violently. Black runes directly collapsed in the air. A huge hole appeared in the center of the palm from Jiu Fei's punch. The black hand was collapsing, and the huge hole that was blasted open by Jiu Fei was expanding. Countless runes were being annihilated in the void. With just one punch, Jiu Fei had broken the shocking technique unleashed by the creature in the black mist, and the entire world was restored to its original brightness. The creature in the black mist was extremely shocked. It never thought that its technique would be broken so easily. This human was much more powerful and terrifying than it had imagined. Shua. At this moment, Jiu Fei took a step forward, displaying his extreme speed of 8 steps. In an instant, he appeared in front of the black fog in the sky. Then, he stretched out his hand and slapped towards the black fog. A giant chaotic hand appeared in the void. Before the hand could actually slap the black mist, the mist dissipated, and a pitch-black creature appeared indistinctly in the mist. When Jiu Fei saw the creature, he was taken aback. To think that there would be such a strange creature in this world. The creature looked like a huge meatball, with tentacles growing out of its body and a black aura lingering around it. Jiu Fei had never seen such a creature before. Roar! The creature let out a furious roar that shook the sky. A large amount of black gas surged out of its body, and the creature's body disappeared into the black gas. Bang! The chaos hand slapped down, sending the creature hiding in the black mist flying thousands of feet away by Jiu Fei's attack. "That's all," Jiu Fei replied calmly. "Damn it." The creature howled out repeatedly. As a powerful being of the island, this creature ruled over an entire area. With a single thought, it could decide the life and death of every single living being on the island other than the other two powerful beings. To think that it would be suppressed by a human at this moment. This was a reality that it could not accept. Kill. As though it had gone berserk, the creature bolted out at Jiu Fei. An endless amount of black gas gushed out of the creature's body, covering the entire world. Yes. Suddenly, Jiu Fei could no longer sense the existence of the creature. It was as though the creature had disappeared into thin air. Void technique. Jiu Fei's heart skipped a beat as he shifted tens of feet to the side. Bang. With a muffled sound, the moment Jiu Fei shifted to the side, the void he was in collapsed. A tentacle pierced through the void. If not for the fact that he had shifted to the side, Jiu Fei might have been entangled by this tentacle that had suddenly pierced through the void. It really is the void technique. Could this creature be the legendary void beast? Jiu Fei mumbled to himself. He immediately used the anti-void technique. At the next moment, chaotic Dao patterns appeared on his body. His entire body became blurry, as though he was about to merge into the void. Under the state of using the anti-void technique, Jiu Fei could sense the slightest changes in the void around him. He could grasp the pulse of the void. At this moment, he caught sight of the illusory figure of the creature within the black mist moving towards him at a rapid speed. Traversing through the void. Even Jiu Fei couldn't do something as such for the time being. However, this creature had managed to do it. This was enough to prove that this creature's understanding of the Tao of Void was even deeper than Jiu Fei's. All techniques returned to truth. Without hesitation, Jiu Fei deployed this great skill that was imparted to him by the mountain and river cauldron. A surge of Tao power spread out from Jiu Fei's body. The creature that was approaching Jiu Fei fell out of the void. How could this be? The creature was truly taken aback right now. One must know that the void technique was its signature move. To think that it would be broken by this human. This fella. It was only at this moment that the creature realized that this human was way scarier than it had imagined. It had made a mistake in its judgment. Bam! The void beast was sent flying back while spitting out blood by Jiu Fei's attack. There was no longer any suspense in the battle that followed. Under the power of Jiu Fei's all techniques returned to truth, the void beast found it hard to escape into the void. It had lost its greatest trump card. Eventually, the void beast's physical body was destroyed by Jiu Fei, and its soul was captured. Thereafter, Jiu Fei used the god-snatching secret skill to obtain the Tao of Void that the void beast had mastered. Naturally, Jiu Fei would not leave any loose ends. He destroyed the soul of the void beast immediately. By now, the golden bird had long left without anyone knowing. This human was so frightening that even someone as strong as the golden bird would have to retreat. Big bro, that gigantic bird has escaped. The soaring serpent rushed over. Forget it. After all, that gigantic bird has the bloodline of an ancient god-beast. So what if it escapes? Jiu Fei did not intend to be ruthless. This barren island was far from simple. It should have been formed from a piece of the primordial world after the primordial world was destroyed. A place as such had the laws of the primordial world left behind. If one were to cultivate in this place, it would naturally be much easier. This was also the reason why this barren island could give birth to such powerful living beings. Chapter 2476. Jiu Fei wandered around the desolate island and plundered the nests of the void beast and the silver creature. He collected a few rare divine medicines before leaving the desolate island with the soaring serpent. The golden bird was terrified after witnessing all of this. It was afraid that Jiu Fei and the soaring serpent would come looking for it. Fortunately, the thing it was most worried about did not happen. The golden bird heaved a sigh of relief when Jiu Fei left the desolate island with the soaring serpent. This was because Jiu Fei had given it too much pressure. Jiu Fei had unexpectedly taken a stroll around the deserted island this time and had gained a lot, especially the lunar essential water essence, which was a divine substance nurtured by heaven and earth. Moreover, he had abducted the soaring serpent from the island. Although the soaring serpent was still in its infancy, it would become a powerful existence that could slaughter saints once it matured. This was the descendant of an ancient pure-blooded divine beast. Its inheritance was hidden in the soaring serpent's bloodline. As the soaring serpent's cultivation continued to increase, the power of its bloodline would gradually be stimulated. The soaring serpent would then be able to obtain the inheritance of the soaring serpent's bloodline. Big brother, where is the Starfall Island? Two figures flew across the sky at an extremely fast speed. Strong gales swept down from the sky. The surface of the sea was no longer calm as huge waves were formed. I don't know either. Let's go and see. We'll eventually find a way back. Jiyu Fei said. The God-fallen sea was too vast. Even with his ability, he was still lost in the God-fallen sea. Moreover, at this time, the deity in the mountain and river cauldron was in a deep sleep. The god in the mountain and river cauldron had obtained the supreme dragon essence. Naturally, it wanted to refine the dragon essence and recover its former strength. The soaring serpent was speechless. Its big brother seemed to be a little unreliable. Meanwhile, on the Starfall continent, everyone was panicking because Jiyu Fei had disappeared during his tribulation. One had to know that Jiyu Fei was their backbone. Following the disappearance of Jiyu Fei, the experts of the Kuanping race became even more arrogant, not taking the unold demon child and the others seriously at all. However, the ancestral ground of the Kuanping race was still sealed by the unaging demon child and the others. No one could come out, not even the two heavenly sovereigns of the Kuanping race. Actually, the Kuanping clan seemed to be fine on the surface, but in reality, everyone in the Kuanping clan knew that once the person called Jiyu Fei returned, the Kuanping clan would be in danger of being exterminated. The Kuanping race was not isolated from the outside world. They already knew about Jiyu Fei's various achievements. This human had actually subdued 3 holy venerables from the overseas world all by himself and even leveled 3 of the overseas world's fiercest places. Even if it was just one of them, it would be difficult for the entire Kuanping race to accomplish such a thing. No one could remain calm in the face of such a ferocious person. Even the old patriarch of the Kuanping race had begun to plan for a way out. At this moment, the Iron-Blood Taoist and the others did not know whether Jiyu Fei was dead or alive. However, everyone knew that Jiyu Fei was still alive and had not died under the heavenly tribulation. This was because the seal that Jiyu Fei had planted in the bodies of the unaging demon child and the other 2 holy venerables had not dissipated. This was the best proof. Where did he go? Why isn't he back yet? In the ancestral ground of the demon race on the Starfall continent, a white-robed woman sat cross-legged on a mountain surrounded by spiritual energy. This white-robed woman was Yang Er. At this moment, Yang Er's gaze became deep. She raised her head to look at the sky, but no one knew what she was thinking about. Just as everyone was anxiously waiting for Jiyu Fei's return, Jiyu Fei and the soaring serpent discovered an island in the boundless God-fallen sea. The aura of the human race, when they were thousands of miles away from the island, Jiyu Fei sensed the exuberant vitality and the expanding aura of the human race on the island. Things would be easier now that there were people. Jiyu Fei was both surprised and overjoyed. He hurriedly rushed towards the island with the soaring serpent. Soon, they arrived in the sky outside the island. This island was much smaller than the desolate island. It was less than 1/1000th of the desolate island's size, but it was still tens of thousands of miles wide. In the center of the island, there was a huge city surrounded by mountains. People came and went in the big city, and it was very lively. In just an instant, Jiyu Fei's consciousness enveloped the entire island. In the huge city on the island, an old man with white hair and a beard who was sitting on a futon suddenly opened his eyes. I didn't expect such a small island to have an expert guarding it. Very good. Jiyu Fei smiled. Haha, there's a fight. The soaring serpent also smiled happily. Then, Jiyu Fei and the soaring serpent directly entered the island and soon arrived in the sky above the huge city. I wonder which expert has come to Heaven Connect City. This old man has not gone out to welcome you. A wave of consciousness spread out from the huge city. Then, an old man with white hair and a beard appeared in the sky above the huge city. Heaven Connect City. Jiu Fei couldn't help but be startled. This huge city was actually called Heaven Connect City. Could it be that there was some kind of secret behind it? When the old man saw Jiu Fei and the soaring serpent, he was extremely shocked. He never thought that the people who had come would be so young. The soaring serpent, it's the legendary soaring serpent. The old man stared at the soaring serpent beside Jiu Fei and his voice trembled. The old man had actually seen through the soaring serpent's background. Not everyone had such knowledge. Old man, you're not simple. Jiu Fei looked at the old man opposite him and said with a smile. The younger generation will surpass the older. I have to admit that I'm old after seeing you. The old man said with a long sigh. Old man, come, let's have a fight first. The soaring serpent was already itching for a fight. A strong wave of energy rippled out from its body and strands of fiery energy circled around its body. Haha, I'm itching to fight you guys. Come over there. As he spoke, the old man turned into a ray of purple light and rushed into the mountains outside the huge city. Hee hee. The soaring serpent laughed and turned into a ray of fiery light and chased after the old man. Seeing this, Jiu Fei couldn't help but shake his head. He didn't move and instead entered the huge city below and strolled along the streets. The people in the huge city wore strange and ancient clothing. It was very different from the clothing of the people of the Ting Long continent. However, when the people in the huge city saw Jiu Fei's arrival, they didn't have any reaction and continued to do what they were supposed to do. The people here seemed to stand aloof from worldly affairs and lived ordinary but happy lives. Rumble. Chapter 2477. In the mountains outside of the city, the soaring serpent and the old man were fighting. Powerful shockwaves emanated from the mountains, shaking the entire mountain range. The old man was very strong, but he was not at a disadvantage in his battle with the soaring serpent. While the old man was fighting with the soaring serpent, Jiu Fei was leisurely strolling around the city. He was not in a hurry. Perhaps there was something he needed here. Perhaps it was fate that he was able to come to this place in the endless godly sea. Inside the huge city, Jiu Fei's state of mind was extremely calm. He walked to a tea house and took a look at it. On the signboard of the tea house, there was a single character, Dao. Interesting. Jiu Fei was a little surprised. Could the owner of this place be a cultivator? The word Dao on the signboard had a special charm to it. Without thinking too much, Jiu Fei walked into the tea house and went upstairs. He sat down at a table by the window on the second floor. Very quickly, a waiter dressed in green came to serve Jiu Fei. Then, a tea set was placed on the table in front of Jiu Fei. The waiter skillfully brewed a pot of fragrant tea for Jiu Fei. The fragrance of this tea was a little special. It was not very strong, but the smell made Jiu Fei feel very comfortable. Of course, although tea was good, to Jiu Fei, it was just an ordinary thing. Something from the mortal world could only satisfy his taste buds. Jiu Fei leisurely enjoyed this rare moment of peace. Outside the window, on the streets below, everyone was busy making a living. Although their lives were ordinary, they enjoyed it. Although he was high and mighty, and could dictate the life and death of others, compared to these mortals, he was nothing. Sometimes, even saints were not that much happier than mortals. After half a cup of tea's time had passed, a figure suddenly flashed at the entrance of the staircase. An old man with white hair and beard walked up and directly sat opposite Jiu Fei. Shua. At this moment, a figure flashed in from the window and instantly slipped into Jiu Fei's sleeve without alerting anyone. What? Who won and who lost? Jiu Fei smiled as he raised the teacup in his hand and took a sip. This old man is cheating. Otherwise, how could I? From Jiu Fei's sleeves came the unwilling voice of the soaring serpent. Hehe, so it's you who lost. Jiu Fei smiled and said. Nonsense, old man, let's fight again. The soaring serpent was indignant. I think we should forget it. If we fight again, my old bones will fall apart. The old man shook his head. This soaring serpent was very strong. If it weren't for the fact that his cultivation base was not too bad, he would not have been able to suppress this legendary divine beast. Although the soaring serpent was still in its infancy, it had already displayed extraordinary combat strength. "Old man, how about we talk about a giant city?" Ji Fei looked at the old man and said. The old man thought for a while and said, "You are the only person who has come here in the past 1,000 years. Then, the old man told Lin Fan about the history of this giant city and himself. It turned out that this giant city had existed since the ancient times. This old man was not a native of this giant city. He was an outsider. When the old man was young, he accidentally got lost in the endless God-fallen ocean. Since then, he could not find his way back. In the end, he found this island." From the old man's words, Ji Fei knew that this old man had stayed in this giant city for thousands of years. In the beginning, the old man did not want to be trapped on this island and tried to return to the Tenglong continent. However, even though he found a way to leave, there was nothing he could do. Unless he could become a sage, he would not be able to leave this place. The power of heaven's punishment enveloped the entire human world. In the human world, no one could become a sage, including the old man. In the end, the old man gave up on the idea of leaving and has been living here ever since. "I have to become a sage in order to leave this place," Ji Fei said to himself. This was easy. Not only was he a sage, but he was also the emperor of sages. He also told the old man about his background. Of course, thousands of years ago, when the old man first appeared, the Taishan sect had not yet been established. Naturally, the old man did not know who Ji Fei was. In the end, the old man brought Ji Fei to the palace of the city leader in the giant city. This was the old man's territory. For thousands of years, the old man had taught his disciples here. All the cultivators in the giant city were his disciples. According to the old man, the people in this giant city did not know how to cultivate at all. However, their lifespans were much longer than the people in the Tenglong continent. The people in the giant city could usually live for 200 or 300 years. Some people could even live for 500 years. However, the old man found that the people here did not seem to be suitable for cultivation. No matter how hard his disciples cultivated, none of them could reach the immortal realm. Under the guidance of the old man, Ji Fei came to a secret room in the palace. In the secret room, there was a formation platform. To be exact, it was a transportation formation platform. This is, when Ji Fei saw the formation platform, he could not help but be surprised and happy. This was an ancient formation platform that exuded an ancient and vicissitude aura. No wonder only sages can leave this place. Ji Fei hurried forward and carefully looked at the runes on the formation platform. He was surprised to find that this formation platform seemed to be related to the 3 continents of the fallen God Sea. Could this be the disappeared 4th continent, the Tongtian continent? Ji Fei was incomparably shocked. The Tongtian continent was only a legendary existence. Even the ageless demon child and the other old antiques who had achieved the Tao since ancient times had only heard of this continent. The Tongtian continent was said to be related to a supreme from the ancient times. It had never appeared in the world, but he did not expect to encounter it. From the runes on the formation platform, Ji Fei could deduce that the people of the Tongtian continent could travel with the other 3 continents through this formation platform. However, no one knew what happened in the surroundings of the fallen God Sea. All the cultivators disappeared, and the remaining people were mortals who did not know how to cultivate. Thus, the Tongtian continent had been isolated from the world for many years. "Old man, do you want to leave this place?" An hour later, Ji Fei jumped down from the ancient formation platform and asked the old man. "You can activate this ancient formation platform." The old man was extremely excited. He wanted to go back and take a look. When he left, his wife was already pregnant. He did not know if his child was a boy or a girl, or if it was still alive. Chapter 2478. Under the activation of Ji Fei, the ancient runes on the ancient formation platform began to light up. A wave of Tao rhyme emerged and the entire formation platform was like an ancient wild beast that had been slumbering for countless years, awakening from its slumber. At this moment, Ji Yufei pressed his right hand on one of the formation cores on the formation platform, and the essence qi in his body was continuously sucked away by the formation platform. This, Ji Yufei was shocked. The amount of essence qi required by this ancient formation platform was simply too huge. It was like a bottomless pit that was sucking away at the essence qi in his body. No wonder old man Tongtian said that only saint-level existences could activate this ancient formation platform. Only saint-level existences could provide this ancient formation platform with immeasurable essence qi. Anyone below the saint level, even a saint-to-be, would have their essence qi sucked dry when activating this ancient formation platform. They would then die instantly. Buzz. Soon, the ancient formation platform vibrated. At this moment, Ji Yufei felt that the ancient formation platform was no longer sucking away his energy. He retracted his right hand from the formation core and stood up. Just as Ji Yufei stood up, countless runes rushed out of the ancient formation platform and turned into a ball of divine light that enveloped everyone on the formation platform. Swoosh! The void trembled. At the moment when the ball of divine light emitted its strongest brilliance, it suddenly disappeared from the ancient formation platform. The moment the divine light disappeared, the countless runes on the formation platform dissipated. The runes on the entire ancient formation platform instantly lost their luster and became dim again. Master, countless cultivators of the Tongtian continent gathered outside the city lord's mansion of Tongtian City. These cultivators were all disciples and grand disciples of old man Tongtian. When these cultivators saw a ray of divine light rushing out of the city lord's mansion and entering the void, they all knew that their master had left. He had left the Tongtian continent. All the cultivators outside the city lord's mansion knelt down and some of them even cried bitterly. At this time, Ji Yufei and the others were sent into the void by the power of the ancient spirit formation platform. They traveled quickly in the void, surrounded by darkness. It was an endless world of darkness. This was how long-distance void teleportation worked. A ball of divine light traversed through the dark void at an extremely fast speed. However, the person in the divine light did not feel that he was moving at all. Above the divine light that enveloped Ji Yufei and old man Tongtian, runes appeared indistinctly, interweaving into ancient and profound Tao diagrams. I didn't expect you to be a saint. Old man Tongtian was extremely shocked. He had thought that he would be trapped in the heaven-reaching continent for the rest of his life. He had never imagined that he would be able to leave the heaven-reaching continent one day. Mitch, little old man, my big brother is very capable. It was unknown when the soaring serpent had crawled out from Ji Yufei's sleeve. It lay on Ji Yufei's shoulder and snorted coldly. It was still in a bad mood after being defeated by old man Tongtian. Fellow Daoist Ji Yu, could you be a senior ancient saint that achieved the Tao in the ancient times? Old man Tongtian thought of something and couldn't help but be shocked. One should know that it was impossible to become a saint in the mortal world. The power of heaven's wrath did not allow the existence of saints in the mortal world. Those ancient saints in the mortal world had no choice but to use a secret technique to seal their cultivation in order to be able to walk in the mortal world. Old man, you're overthinking things. Ji Yufei said with a smile. He didn't say anything else. Then how could you? Old man Tongtian was even more shocked. If this Ji Yufei wasn't an ancient saint that achieved the Tao in the ancient times, then how did he become a saint in the mortal world? It was basically impossible to become a saint in the mortal world. However, there were no absolutes in the world. For example, the opening of the chaotic world was not as good as a forbidden land in the mortal world that could disrupt the laws of the world. Could it be that the chaotic world has appeared again? Old man Tongtian said in shock. His eyes immediately lit up. He was an expert of his generation thousands of years ago and was publicly recognized as a cultivation genius in the mortal world. He knew many great secrets of the world. The existence of the chaotic world was not a secret to old man Tongtian. You know quite a lot. Ji Yufei didn't deny it. The chaotic world has really appeared again. Old man Tongtian's expression turned a little sluggish when he heard this. This was a great opportunity for a quasi-saint in the mortal world to become a saint. His body trembled but he quickly calmed down. What a pity, Such a great opportunity. Old man Tongtian shook his head and sighed. He was trapped in the legendary fourth continent of the God-fallen sea and lost such a great opportunity. He was extremely disappointed. What's there to pity? The power of heaven's wrath is about to disappear and the world might return to the primitive era. The real great era is coming. Ji Yufei's eyes turned deep as he said this. What? Old man Tongtian was really shocked when he heard this. Even if he didn't know the great secret of the world, he could imagine how serious the consequences of the power of heaven's wrath would be. Once the power of heaven's wrath disappeared, there would be no power that could restrain the saint-level living beings. The saint-level living beings would regain their invincible saint-level cultivation. At that time, the mortal world would definitely be in chaos. How is this possible? Old man Tongtian muttered to himself. At this moment, Ji Yufei didn't want to say anything more. One should know that even he only learned of such a great secret by chance. Old man Tongtian wanted to ask again after he came back to his senses. However, Ji Yufei didn't say anything else. Instead, he sat cross-legged in the void and ignored old man Tongtian. Once this news was made known to the world, it would definitely cause panic. Even a quasi-saint like old man Tongtian lost his composure, let alone the countless cultivators in the cultivation world. If news of the disappearance of the power of heaven's wrath were to spread, the cultivation world of the mortal world would probably be in chaos before the power of heaven's wrath disappeared. This wasn't something that Ji Yufei wanted to see. He still had many things to do. Now that the power of heaven's wrath was still around, those fellows wouldn't dare to act recklessly. However, once the power of heaven's wrath disappeared, those fellows would have nothing to fear. Even the soaring serpent fell silent. After an unknown period of time, the divine light that enveloped Ji Yufei and old man Tongtian suddenly trembled. The faint runes on the divine light emitted a dazzling divine radiance. At the same time, rays of divine light suddenly shot out from a forbidden land on the falling stars continent. Every ray of divine light was like a divine rainbow that pierced through the void. The powerful energy waves immediately alerted all the powerful creatures on the falling stars continent. The unaging demon child and the others immediately rushed toward the forbidden land. It was an ancient ruin. To be more precise, it was a ruin. However, this ruin was a terrifying land of danger. Even during the day, the place was eerie and gloomy. From time to time, one could see immortals with their heads severed and celestial beings with their feathers cut off moving about in the ruins. This was a land of danger that had been cursed. Even the unaging demon child and the others were unwilling to set foot in this place. They were afraid that they would come into contact with the evil energy and something ominous would happen to them. However, at this moment, an incredibly powerful energy wave came from the land of danger. A hair-raising voice could be heard coming from the depths of the land of danger. What's going on? The unaging demon child and the other two sacred venerables immediately came to the outskirts of the land of danger. They were unwilling to enter the land of danger, so they only observed from the outside. The three sacred venerables were extremely shocked. They saw some ancient figures roaming about in the land of danger. Ancient gods and demons had fallen in the land of danger, but their remnant will did not dissipate. Rumble. While the three sacred venerables were still in shock, a deep rumble came from the depths of the land of danger. The ground trembled as the energy wave coming from the land of danger grew stronger. At this moment, the three sacred venerables saw the ground of the land of danger crack open as a formation platform rose from the ground. Ancient runes could be vaguely seen on the platform. An ancient aura was emitted from the formation platform. An ancient teleportation formation. The eyes of the Southern Heaven Supremacy lit up when he saw the formation platform. At this moment, countless runes lit up on the teleportation formation platform. An aura of the great Tao appeared between the heavens and the earth. The formation platform was awakening. The energy of the heavens and earth began to gather toward the ancient formation platform. Why is this ancient formation platform suddenly awakening? Celestial the Arch-Ziyang said. His expression was incomparably solemn. He could already tell that this ancient formation platform was not something from the Antiquity Age, but something left behind from an era even older than the Antiquity Age. Could it be that a supreme existence from the ancient era has lived to this day? The unaging demon child thought of this possibility. It was not impossible for a powerful existence from the ancient era to live to this day. However, for ancient saints like heavenly monarch Ziyang who achieved Tao in the ancient era, the ancient mythological era had already become a legend. This was the previous reincarnation cycle. The disappearance of the ancient mythological era was the end of the previous reincarnation cycle and the beginning of the next one. The ancient era was a new reincarnation. However, very few people could transcend the reincarnation cycle and live to the present. However, there was one thing that Heavenly Emperor Ziyang and the others were very clear about. If there was an ancient living being that lived to the present, then that ancient living being would definitely be a supreme existence. The ancient formation platform is awakening. Could it be that an ancient existence is about to cross over? The Southern Heaven Supremacy's voice was very cold. This was definitely not a good thing for him. There's no need for us to make wild guesses. We will know the result very soon. The unaging demon child said calmly. He looked calm on the surface, but he was actually a little nervous on the inside. The awakening of the ancient formation platform clearly meant that an unknown existence was about to descend upon the Falling Stars continent. At this moment, other experts from the Falling Stars continent also arrived one after another. These experts were also indescribably shocked when they saw the scene in the ominous land. Rumble, the heavens and earth were shaking. The ancient formation platform that rose from the depths of the ominous land had already risen to the sky above the ominous land. Terrifying sounds like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of deities could be heard coming from the ominous land. Vague figures could be seen in the ominous land. There were figures of ancient gods wandering around. Chapter 2479. There was a huge change in an ominous place on the Starfall continent. An ancient formation platform in the ominous place suddenly awakened, alarming all the powerful creatures on the Starfall continent. This was a famous cursed place on the Starfall continent. No one was willing to set foot in it. Even the unaging demon child and other powerful saint venerables were unwilling to go near this cursed place. At this moment, shrill cries came from the cursed place. Ancient silhouettes were faintly discernible. Primordial gods and devils were roaring. High up in the sky, an ancient formation platform emitted a dazzling divine light. Countless runes rushed out from the platform as if they were communicating with the past, present, and future. Everyone felt incomparably pressured. Buzz. High up in the sky, the ancient formation platform suddenly shook. Then, the countless runes turned into a ball of divine light. It was as if a divine sun had appeared between heaven and earth. "What is that?" someone exclaimed. At this moment, someone saw two silhouettes appear on the ancient formation platform. What? Ancient undying creatures are really descending on the Starfall continent. At this moment, even the three saint venerables could not remain calm. One should know that if the ancient undying creatures were really descending, then the entire Starfall continent would experience an unimaginable change. Rumble, the ancient formation platform shook. The two silhouettes shrouded by the divine light on the platform gradually became clearer. Powerful creatures were about to cross the endless void and descend on the Starfall continent. What's going on? Suddenly, the unaging demon child and the other two heavenly venerables wore strange expressions. They sensed a familiar aura coming from the ball of divine light on the ancient formation platform. The three saint venerables could not help but glance at each other. They could all see the uncertainty in each other's eyes. How is this possible? The three saint venerables found it a little unbelievable. At this moment, a dazzling ball of divine light suddenly burst out from the ancient formation platform. This ball of divine light was extremely dazzling. It was several times brighter than the divine sun in the sky. The sudden burst of light made it difficult for everyone to look straight at it. Those with weaker cultivations could not even open their eyes. In the next moment, the dazzling divine light suddenly disappeared. Those who could still open their eyes felt their vision darken for a moment before gradually brightening up. The ancient array platform floated quietly in the sky, and there were two people standing on it. It should be said that it was two people and a snake. Of course, This snake was no ordinary snake. It's really him. When the unold demon child saw the familiar figure on the ancient formation platform, his heart couldn't help but jump. This person had finally returned. The 2 men and 1 snake that had traversed the endless void to appear on the ancient formation platform were not the legendary undying creatures from ancient times. Yes. Master, when the Iron-Blood Daoist saw the figure on the ancient array platform, his voice trembled with excitement. Master, Crimson Dragon and Yarrow, you were extremely excited. His back, on the Falling Star continent, in a stone chamber in the demon clan's ancestral land, a long-haired woman in white who was sitting cross-legged on a futon suddenly opened her eyes. Roar. At this moment, a series of roars rang out from below the ancient spirit formation platform. A powerful curse power enveloped the entire area, including the ancient spirit formation platform. Shadows of ancient demons appeared in the void, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they charged towards the ancient array platform in the sky. This was the evil will that was formed after the fall of the ancient gods and devils. This evil will was very terrifying. If one was tainted by it, even a saint would die in an instant. Boom. Just as the shadows formed from the evil thoughts of ancient demons were about to pounce on the ancient array platform, a ball of fire suddenly exploded from the ancient array platform. The fire burned the sky, and countless shadows that had rushed up from below were instantly swallowed by the sweeping fire. They were then refined into wisps of green smoke that dissipated in the void. A flame-shaped Dao pattern could be vaguely seen in that ball of fire, emitting a heart-palpitating aura of extreme yang. Extreme yang Dao fire. The unaging demon child could not help but be shocked. He cultivated the Black Tortoise secret technique and the Great Path of Water. This kind of extreme yang Dao fire was his nemesis. In fact, the supreme yang Dao fire was not only the nemesis of water elemental power, but it was also the nemesis of all evil energies. The evil thoughts that the ancient gods and devils had turned into after their deaths were enveloped by the supreme yang Dao fire and turned into green smoke. Following that, a path formed from true fire extended from the ancient array platform. 2 figures stepped onto the path and were brought out of the ominous lands by the path. During this process, the 2 people and the snake on the true fire path were not tainted by the curse power of the cursed lands. The divine fire dissipated, and the 2 figures appeared outside the cursed lands. However, the ancient array platform above the cursed lands had disappeared. Greetings, Master, greetings, Master. Outside the cursed lands, everyone hurriedly rushed towards the 2 people and the snake that had emerged from the cursed lands. They then bowed to one of the figures. Brother Gu, the Tongtian old man was already stunned. Although he already knew that Gu Fei was very powerful in the meteorite continent, he did not expect Gu Fei to be this powerful. None of the people who bowed to Gu Fei were weaklings. The 6 or 7 people who led the group were all extremely powerful saints. How could the Tongtian old man not be moved? Gu Fei only nodded without saying anything. Big brother, these people are all your subordinates. In contrast to the Tongtian old man, the soaring serpent was extremely excited. His big brother was really amazing. He actually had so many powerful subordinates. Gu Fei smiled and said a few simple words to the crowd. Then, he brought the soaring serpent and the Tongtian old man back to the demon clan's ancestral grounds in the meteorite continent. A place like this, the Tongtian old man was shocked when he arrived at the demon clan's ancestral grounds. He could tell that this place was extraordinary. There was ancestral qi rising from the ground. This was a phenomenon unique to the Earth ancestral veins. In other words, this area of 1,000 miles was the source of the meteorite continent's Earth ancestral veins. The Earth ancestral veins rose and spiritual energy gathered from all directions. Cultivating in such a place would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. It was impossible for one not to become powerful. The Tongtian old man was arranged to stay in a separate pavilion in the demon clan's ancestral grounds. The soaring serpent followed Gu Fei. It lay on Gu Fei's shoulder and refused to come down. At this time, even if Gu Fei wanted to chase the soaring serpent away, it wouldn't leave. There was a palace built on a spiritual peak in the demon clan's ancestral grounds. Jiyu Fei sat on a throne in the middle of the palace. The soaring serpent with wings on its back lay on his shoulder. A group of experts stood in 2 rows below the throne. The Iron-Blood Taoist was the first to step forward. He told Jiyu Fei about the various things that happened in the meteorite continent after Jiyu Fei left. The Kuanping tribe really doesn't know what's good for them. The Red Dragon Taoist stepped forward after the Iron-Blood Taoist was done. Master, we need to punish the Kuanping tribe severely. The Red Dragon suggested. With the exception of the Kuanping clan, all the other powerful clans of the Starfall continent have submitted to us. The Kuanping clan is challenging our authority. Mr. Wu also stepped forward and suggested that the Kuanping tribe be suppressed. Following that, more people stepped forward and suggested that Jiyu Fei punish the Kuanping tribe severely. What do you think? Jiyu Fei suddenly glanced at the unaging demon child and the other 2 sacred venerables. The unaging demon child pondered for a moment before saying, "The Kuanping tribe is too strong. We need to teach them a lesson, but they have 2 sacred venerables, and they are also descendants of ancient divine beasts." The beast sacred venerable was a little hesitant. "I'm just afraid that they won't submit even if we teach them a lesson." The South Heaven sacred venerable suddenly said. "Humph, the Kuanping tribe is strong, but so what?" Heavenly Emperor Ziyang said impatiently. Everyone couldn't help but look at Heavenly Emperor Ziyang when they heard this. Everyone in the hall could tell what Heavenly Emperor Ziyang was implying, but no one pointed it out. While Jiyu Fei was back to take charge of the situation, the Kuanping tribe's ancestral land could no longer remain calm after hearing the news of Jiyu Fei's return. On top of a towering mountain in the ancestral land of the Kuanping tribe stood a palace. This was the famous Kuanping Palace of the Meteorite Continent. Legend had it that this Kuanping Palace was a palace left behind by the ancient divine beast, the Kuanping. At this moment, all the higher-ups of the Kuanping tribe had gathered in the Kuanping Palace. More than 10 Kuanping tribe members emitting powerful auras gathered in the main hall of the Kuanping Palace. A tall and mighty old man was sitting in the main hall of the Kuanping Palace. "Leader, Jiyu Fei has returned. What should we do?" A middle-aged man in green asked the old man. "Humph, what's there to be afraid of? We'll deal with it when it comes. If Jiyu Fei dares to come, I'll cut him down with my blade." A middle-aged man in black said in a low voice. He didn't seem to care about Jiyu Fei at all. He's a ruthless man. He even leveled the 3 most ominous places in the overseas seas. Someone said. Everyone in the hall fell silent after hearing this. Jiyu Fei's battle record could be said to be unprecedented. It should be known that the 3 great forbidden lands of the Endless Sea had existed for countless years. Even some of the most talented experts would find it difficult to flatten these forbidden lands. However, the 3 forbidden places were leveled by Jiyu Fei. Jiyu Fei's battle record made everyone in the hall feel heavy in their hearts. "Humph, you guys are too naive. Do you really think that Jiyu Fei can level the 3 forbidden places by himself?" The middle-aged man in black said disdainfully. "Do you know something?" Someone asked the middle-aged man in black. "Tempage, I don't know much more than all of you. However, even if I use my toes to think, I can figure out that this Jiyu Fei must have borrowed the strength of the Purple Sun region and the Clear Moon region in order to flatten the 3 great danger zones." The middle-aged man in black said. Boom. Chapter 2480. The entire ancestral land of the Kuanping race began to shake. Countless runes appeared, and the ancestral formation of the Kuanping race began to operate. The world seemed to have turned into an endless black sea, and a gigantic creature appeared in the Black Sea. It was a huge fish, the legendary Kuan. There was a fish in the northern underworld called the Kuan. The entire ancestral land of the Kuanping race had turned into the northern underworld sea. There was a huge fish floating in the sea, raising huge waves that reached the 9 heavens as if they were going to break through the sky. At this time, the ancestral land of the Kuanping race had disappeared from the world, hidden in the dark North Divine Sea. This was the might of the rock race's ancestral formation. It was able to produce such shocking phenomena and reproduce the extremely shocking scene of a rock leaving the sea. What's going on? The ancestral formation of the Kuanping race had been activated. Everyone in the Kuanping palace paled. Someone had actually shaken the ancestral land of the Kuanping race. Such power was unimaginable. Everyone in the Kuanping palace rushed out and looked up. They saw the vast power of the Kuanping in all directions. High up in the sky, a huge fish rushed out of the sea and transformed into a nine heavens divine peng, soaring through the nine heavens. The ancestral formation's power has been completely activated. Even the patriarch of the Kuanping race was dumbfounded. He truly couldn't imagine that there was still power in this world that could shake the ancestral formation. That Jiyu Fei actually has such power? Muttered the patriarch. He felt a bit uneasy. It seemed he had underestimated Jiyu Fei. It seemed this Jiyu Fei was truly not simple. Patriarch, you mean? At this time, even the black-robed man was extremely shocked. Chumph, that Jiyu Fei attacked the Kuanping race as soon as he returned. How hateful. Everyone was furious, but there was nothing they could do. They knew that the Kuanping race was determined to unify the Starfall continent. Since the Kuanping race wasn't willing to submit, they were enemies. There's no need to worry. No one can break the ancestral formation. I want to see what abilities this Jiyu Fei has, said the black-robed man. The black-robed middle-aged man said. Although he was shocked, he still pretended to be disdainful. There was a reason why the Kuanping clan was able to survive in the falling star continent for so many years. The ancestral formation of the Kuanping clan had never been broken by anyone. This was the confidence of the Kuanping race. As long as the ancestral formation was not broken, even if the sky and earth outside collapsed, it would not affect the Kuanping race. Furthermore, even if the ancestral formation was destroyed, the Rock clan would still have a way out. They would definitely not be annihilated. In the worst-case scenario, they could still leave the Starfall continent. While the higher-ups of the Kuanping clan were still in shock, the dozen or so killing formations that were sealing the ancestral land of the Kuanping clan all exploded. Countless runes were destroyed, and each rune released a powerful destructive force the moment it was destroyed. More than a dozen killing formations exploded at the same time. The power that erupted was so great that it destroyed a part of the world. The ancestral land of the Kuanping race was instantly enveloped by the chaotic qi. Rumble, streaks of chaotic lightning suddenly appeared in the chaotic qi. They tore through the chaos and emitted a terrifying destructive aura. The entire ancestral land of the Kuanping race was surrounded by the chaotic qi. The destructive power constantly destroyed the ancestral formation of the Kuanping race. However, the ancestral formation of the Kuanping race was really powerful. Even the chaotic qi could not destroy it. Amidst the chaos, there was a part of the Dark North Sea that was vast and mighty. In the sea, there was a huge fish floating and sinking. That huge fish would occasionally rush out of the sea and transform into a divine rock that soared above the nine heavens. Sometimes, it would dive down from the heavens and dive back into the sea, transforming into a huge fish that would raise towering waves. It was as if a real Kuanping had appeared in the world. There was an extreme power rippling out. The huge fish in the sea seemed to be able to crush the world with just a flip. How is this possible? At this time, outside the ancestral land of the Kuanping race, all the experts were extremely shocked. The extreme aura from the chaotic qi made everyone almost unable to breathe. This kind of supreme aura was too powerful. Even a strand of it could oppress the mountains and rivers. Not everyone could bear it. Those with weaker cultivations had to retreat far away. Even the saint-level creatures felt an extreme pressure. The expressions of the unold demon child and the other two saint sovereigns became extremely solemn, especially the unold demon child. Because of the existence of the ancestral formation, the Kuanping race had no scruples against Jiyu Fei and the others. Even the unold demon child could not make the Kuanping race surrender. Chumph, do you think you can break my ancestral formation with this kind of method? A loud shout came from the chaos. The tone was full of disdain. This is just foreplay. On a mountain peak, a white-robed young man looked at the surging chaotic qi in front of him and murmured to himself. A group of experts stood behind him, including the unold demon child and the others. This white-robed young man was Jiyu Fei. On his shoulder, there was a winged serpent. This serpent was the soaring serpent. Then, Jiu Fei turned his right hand and an ancient cauldron appeared in his hand. An ancient aura that seemed to come from ancient times was immediately emitted from the ancient cauldron. Seeing the ancient cauldron in Jiu Fei's hand, the eyes of everyone behind Jiu Fei immediately lit up. That ancient cauldron was a legendary paragon saint weapon. At this time, all the people who followed Jiu Fei knew that their lord had a paragon saint weapon in his hand. The legendary mountain and river cauldron, Heavenly Emperor Ziyang muttered to himself. His eyes were blazing. This paragon saint weapon was a paragon saint weapon that had existed since ancient times. It should be known that the supreme saint weapon was a paragon saint weapon with a god's will inside. It had a different kind of life and was a living supreme scripture. It was really hard to imagine that Jiu Fei actually had such a great opportunity to obtain such a paragon saint weapon. Not only was Heavenly Emperor Ziyang extremely envious, but everyone present who knew the origin of the mountain and river cauldron was also extremely jealous. However, no one dared to have any thoughts of touching it. Jiu Fei had already obtained the approval of the gods' will inside the mountain and river cauldron. It was difficult for others to take it from him. Not only could they not take it away, but they could also be killed by the mountain and river cauldron if they were not careful. At this time, the mountain and river cauldron directly rose from Jiu Fei's hand into the sky and became as huge as a mountain. Then, it suppressed the incomparably huge mass of chaotic qi in front of it. Rumble, the heaven and earth shook as if the sky was about to collapse. The mountain and river cauldron emitted a wisp of supreme Tao aura. A mighty force that could suppress the heaven and earth spread from the mountain and river cauldron. As the mountain and river cauldron suppressed the mass of chaotic qi below, the entire void seemed to solidify. The chaotic qi continuously dissipated, and a vast and mighty dark North Ocean appeared between heaven and earth. Chapter 2481. The cauldron of mountain and river was a supreme treasure that could suppress the world. It could even suppress the sky and earth, let alone the ancestral land of the Kuanping. However, the ancestral land of the Kuanping was protected by the formation of the extreme path. Even the cauldron could not suppress it for a while. Two extremely powerful forces clashed. The divine ocean of the underworld created by the ancestral formation of the Kuanping managed to block the powerful force from the cauldron. Rumble, the world shook. Waves of primordial chaos qi fell from the cauldron. Each wave was enough to crush the sky and seal everything. However, the power of the Kuanping was extremely powerful. The giant fish in the divine ocean seemed to be able to flip the entire world over. The Kuanping was a powerful divine beast from the ancient times. It had the power to flip the sky. The ancestral formation of the Kuanping was truly extraordinary. It could actually gather the power of the Kuanping. I didn't expect the Kuanping to have such a deep foundation. Jiu Fei's expression changed when he saw this. The Kuanping clan's ancestral formation was definitely a sovereign-level formation. Otherwise, how could it withstand the mountain and river cauldron's suppression? Buzz. The mountain-river cauldron shook, and an even more powerful force spread out from the mountain-river cauldron. Ancient and mysterious runes began to appear on the mountain-river cauldron. The ancestral formation of the Kuanping was too powerful. The deity inside the cauldron had to get serious. Once the deity inside the cauldron became serious, it was very terrifying. It did not want to waste time fighting the ancestral formation of the Kuanping. It had obtained the primordial dragon's draconic essence. It needed time to refine the draconic essence and return to its peak state. This was very important to the cauldron. Once the power of heaven's wrath disappeared, the three realms and 6 Taos would be in chaos. No one knew what would happen then. It was very difficult for a supreme to die. Even if they did, they would not die completely. They would be reborn with some heaven-defying method. Who knew if the missing ones would return? Once they did, even the cauldron would be in danger. Rumble, the power that erupted from the cauldron was extremely powerful. It began to press down again. The voice of the great path came from the cauldron as if a supreme being was chanting. This, the divine sound of the great path spread throughout the entire Falling Stars continent. All living creatures were shocked beyond compare. It was as if they had a feeling in their hearts. The problems of cultivation that were hard to understand in the past seemed to have been solved in an instant. At this moment, the Kuan Peng ancestral formation began to shake violently. Pitch-black spatial cracks appeared in the void, like bolts of black lightning shooting out in all directions. The Kuan Peng ancestral formation suffered a great impact. The big fish in the northern underworld divine sea broke through the waves and turned into the nine heavens divine Peng. It soared into the sky and rushed towards the mountain and river cauldron that was pressing down. It was a divine Peng formed from the supreme Tao patterns of the Kuan Peng clan. It was the embodiment of the great Tao created by the Kuan Peng. Boom! With a loud bang, the divine rock directly collided with the cauldron of mountain and river, causing the cauldron to tremble continuously. Countless runes dissipated into the air. So powerful, everyone on the mountain peak was dumbfounded when they saw this. The power of the divine Peng striking the heavens was definitely enough to create a giant hole in the sky. Unfortunately, the opponent of the Kuan Peng race was the mountain river cauldron. Bang! The mountain river cauldron emitted endless power of primordial chaos, which directly shattered the divine Peng. The supreme power destroyed the supreme Tao patterns of the Kuan Peng race. Without any suspense, the northern underworld divine sea below the mountain river cauldron gradually dissipated. The runes of the great Tao array were destroyed by the primordial chaos. Nothing could stop the mountain river cauldron that had completely recovered. Not even the ancestral formation of the Kuan Peng race, unless the venerable Kuan Peng was resurrected. Countless runes were dissipating. The power of the Kuan Peng gathered by the ancestral formation was crushed by the mountain river cauldron and then devoured. Very soon, the ancestral formation of the Kuan Peng was forcibly broken by the mountain river cauldron. The immortal Tao patterns of the Kuan Peng race that were imprinted everywhere in the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race collapsed. Brat, my business is done. Don't disturb me in the near future. Do you understand? Just as the ancestral formation of the Kuan Peng race was broken by the mountain river cauldron, a voice suddenly sounded in Ji Yufei's mind. The god inside the mountain river cauldron was talking to Ji Yufei telepathically. The god inside the mountain river cauldron was very unhappy. It wanted to refine the dragon essence. After breaking the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race, it stopped its magic and retreated. Got it? Ji Yufei said to the mountain river cauldron, which was flying back to him. The mountain river cauldron directly entered Ji Yufei's body and entered the internal world where his dantian was located. Kill. Without any hesitation, the strong cultivators behind Ji Yufei, who were already ready, immediately rushed into the sky and rushed towards the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race. The mountain river cauldron only broke the ancestral formation of the Kuan Peng race, but it did not destroy the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race. It should be known that the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race was not simple. It was the source of the spirit veins within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. It was a divine land. Mph, aren't the Kuan Peng race very powerful? Today, we will make them kneel and beg for mercy. Someone shouted and rushed into the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race. Black robe, come and die. The unold demon child had already entered the depths of the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race. His murderous intent was shocking. He wanted to find the black robe who dared to kill the messenger he sent. His voice spread throughout the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race. However, no one responded. The arrogant black robe did not appear. Not only did he not appear, but the other members of the Kuan Peng race were also nowhere to be seen. What's going on? The unold demon child felt that it was a bit unbelievable. It should be known that the mountain river cauldron was suppressing everything. The Kuan Peng race could not possibly escape using spatial teleportation. Roar, where are those sons of bitches? Someone shouted angrily. There was not a single person in the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race. It was as if the members of the Kuan Peng race had disappeared into thin air. The members of the Kuan Peng race have escaped. The strong cultivators who rushed into the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race were shocked. They could not understand how the members of the Kuan Peng race could escape under the suppression of the mountain river cauldron. This doesn't make sense. The Iron Blood Daoist stood on a mountain peak in the ancestral land of the Kuan Peng race. He frowned. There was no aura of the members of the Kuanping race in the ancestral land of the Kuanping race. The Kuanping palace is gone. At this moment, the unold demon child, heavenly monarch Zi Yang, and hierarch South Heaven arrived at the towering mountain in the ancestral land of the Kuanping race. Chapter 2482. Everyone found it unbelievable that the Kuanping palace had disappeared. After all, the mountain and river cauldron had sealed everything. How could the Kuanping palace disappear? It was unbelievable. How is this possible? Even the holy venerables like the unold demon child were dumbfounded when they saw the empty hilltop. Could the Kuanping palace have escaped under the suppression of the mountain and river cauldron? However, the truth was the truth. In the entire ancestral land of the Kuanping race, there was not a single person of the Kuanping race. All the divine medicines in the field had been moved away. There was not a single divine material or spiritual item in the treasury of the Kuanping race. What shocked everyone was that the ancestral veins of the land where the Kuanping race was located had been moved away. The concentration of spiritual qi in the entire ancestral land of the Kuanping race was rapidly decreasing. The ancestral land of the Kuanping race had been moved away. All the experts who had attacked the Kuanping race were dumbfounded. No one had thought that the Kuanping race would leave so thoroughly and take away everything that could be taken away. The Kuanping race is not simple. Ji Yufei entered the ancestral land of the Kuanping race. He could not help but be moved when he saw the situation. Not everyone could abandon the ancestral land of a race. It should be known that the ancestral land of a race was extremely sacred. The Kuanping palace is gone. The unold demon child and the others walked over and said to Ji Yufei, "The Kuanping palace." Upon hearing this, a thought flashed through Ji Yufei's heart. Could it be that the Kuanping palace was actually an immortal palace built by the Kuanping sovereign? Perhaps, this was the only possibility that could explain why the Kuanping clan was able to calmly retreat under the suppression of the mountain and river cauldron. They had come with such a large force, but this was the result. No one could accept it. In the end, Ji Yufei could only destroy the ancestral land of the Kuanping race with one palm. The ancestral land of the Kuanping race was no longer of any value. The news of the Kuanping race's defeat quickly spread throughout the Falling Stars continent. Some strong races that had not yet expressed their allegiance to Ji Yufei could not sit still anymore. Those powerful races didn't have the heaven-defying methods of the rock race. They didn't want to be exterminated, so they could only choose to submit. The leaders of these powerful races personally went to Ji Yufei and swore their loyalty. Since then, the entire Starfall continent was under Ji Yufei's complete control. Ji Yufei had unified the forces in the Outer Sea domain and conquered the 3 forbidden areas. It could be said that no one had ever achieved such a feat before. Ever since the primordial world shattered, no one had been able to unite the forces in the soaring dragon ancestral star, but Ji Yufei had done it. At this time, even the unaging demon child, Heavenly Emperor Zi Yang, and the others thought that Ji Yufei was someone with great fortune. Otherwise, how could he have unified the outer seas? Subsequently, Ji Yufei lived a peaceful life in the ancestral land of the demon clan. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Under the personal guidance of Ji Yufei, Yarrow Yu's cultivation had finally caught up and reached the peak realm allowed by the human realm. The reason why Yarrow Yu's cultivation had improved so quickly was largely due to the lunar true water she had obtained. Ji Yufei gave Yarrow Yu the lunar true water he obtained from the desolate island and helped Yarrow Yu successfully fuse with the lunar true water, allowing Yarrow Yu to reach the peak of the human realm in a short 3 years. Yarrow Yu's cultivation only needed to advance a step further to reach the bottom line allowed by the human realm. The lunar true water was worthy of being a divine power born naturally from heaven and earth. For Yarrow Yu, who possessed the water element martial physique, it was definitely a supreme treasure that could increase her cultivation. If it was an ordinary person, they would have a hard time refining the lunar true water. Of course, Ji Yufei wouldn't favor one over the other. He obtained an extreme yang true fire from the soaring serpent and gave it to the red dragon. This made the red dragon's cultivation even purer and qualified to break through to the sage realm. However, the red dragon was very cautious and didn't want to break through so quickly. He suppressed his cultivation and sealed it at the quasi-sage realm. As for Yang Ji Yufei didn't have anything to give her because Yang already had the most suitable sacred tool for her, the Myriad Medicine Cosmos Cauldron. The Myriad Medicine Cosmos Cauldron wasn't an ordinary sacred tool. On this day, the moon was hanging high above the willow trees. Ji Yufei and Yang were strolling by the lake. The surface of the lake was as calm as a mirror, and the bright moon in the sky was reflected on its surface. A cool breeze blew by, ruffling their hair. Ji Yufei, do you like me? Yang who had been silent all this time, suddenly stopped and looked at Ji Yufei. Her eyes were incomparably clear, just like when Ji Yufei first met her. Yang had always been a pure girl, very pure. What did you say? Ji Yufei couldn't help but be shocked. His relationship with Yang had always been separated by a thin veil, but now, Yang had said it out loud. I'm asking, do you like me? Yang looked at Ji Yufei and asked in a serious manner. This sudden question left Ji Yufei at a loss of what to do. He didn't know what to do. If anyone could see Ji Yufei's expression right now, their jaws would drop to the ground. One should know that Ji Yufei was a peerless, ruthless person in the eyes of the experts from the overseas. Conquering the 3 fierce places and unifying the 3 continents, Ji Yufei had done something that no one would even dare to think about. Forget it, pretend I didn't say anything. Seeing Ji Yufei's hesitation, Yang face revealed a hint of disappointment. She then turned around and was about to leave. At that moment, a hand reached over and grabbed Yang right hand. Then, with a tug, Yang fell into a warm embrace. The two of them didn't say anything else. At this time, any words would be unnecessary. The next morning, Ji Yufei and Yang left the ancestral grounds of the demon race and walked around the Falling Stars continent. They were going to enter the world to cultivate and use this method to improve their cultivation bases. Ji Yufei and Yang didn't tell anyone. Their sudden disappearance had caused everyone in the ancestral grounds of the demon race to panic. However, they soon calmed down. Even though Ji Yufei was in the ancestral grounds of the demon race, no one dared to challenge his authority, much less rebel against him. The unaging demon child and the others had seals placed on them by Ji Yufei. If Ji Yufei were to die, the seals on them would automatically be removed. Because of this, they all knew that Ji Yufei was alive and well. Since Ji Yufei was alive and well, who would be tired of living and dare to rebel? Ji Yufei and Yang came to a tribe in the mountains and turned into 2 mortals. They hunted for a living and lived a difficult life. However, they were very peaceful and happy. During the day, Ji Yufei picked up his bow and carried a quiver of arrows. He would go into the mountains to hunt. Every time he went into the mountains, he would bring back a lot of prey. This made the other hunters very envious. Danu's wife, your family's Danu, is very capable. He can hunt a lot of prey every time. When Ji Yufei appeared at the mountain pass carrying a huge wild boar weighing several hundred pounds, a few women chatting in front of a wooden house next to Ji Yufei spoke to Yang. These women were all envious of Yang for finding such a powerful man. Yang didn't say anything and only stared at the figure that was gradually approaching. Uncle Danu is back. There's going to be a feast tonight. A few brats rushed out from a nearby wooden house. Uncle Danu, let me help you carry it. A snot-nosed kid grabbed the tail of the huge wild boar and lifted it up with all his might. Hee, Ji Yufei laughed. Danu, good job. At this moment, a few middle-aged men wearing animal skins caught up from behind Ji Yufei. When they saw Ji Yufei had hunted a huge wild boar, they couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. Compared to Ji Yufei, these hunters were only carrying a few pheasants or 2 hares. Their harvest was very small and could only keep their families from starving. Big brother sure, I'm just lucky to have met this guy, that's all. Ji Yufei said with a smile. Haha, it would be great if we could have such luck. Another dark-skinned, skinny man said with a smile. How about everyone coming over for a drink tonight? Ji Yufei said to the hunters. All right, I still have a jar of good wine in my house. Let's get drunk tonight. The bearded big brother said in a loud voice. There's wine to drink, how can we be left out? the other two middle-aged hunters said. At this moment, the women of the families came forward and took the game from their husbands' hands. Then, they returned to their respective wooden houses. Jiu Fei came to the front of his wooden house and threw the wild boar on the ground. "You're back." Yang walked up and took out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat on Jiu Fei's forehead. Soon, the women of the neighboring families came to help with the big wild boar. A big iron pot was set up in front of Jiu Fei and Yang wooden house. The women skillfully cut the big wild boar into 8 pieces and threw the bones into the big iron pot to make soup. Then, they started a bonfire next to the big iron pot and roasted the cut meat on top of the fire. Soon, the fragrance of meat wafted in the air. The people in the mountains were very simple. The relationships between people were also very simple. They did not scheme against each other. Jiu Fei sealed his cultivation and turned into an ordinary person. He changed his name to Daniu and lived in this tribe. Yang also sealed her cultivation and became Jiu Fei's wife. When night fell, Big Brother Shi came in with a jar of wine. Then, the other 2 hunters also came to Jiu Fei's courtyard. Everyone started to eat and drink big bowls of wine and big pieces of meat. Jiu Fei enjoyed this kind of life very much. It was a brand new experience. He could truly blend in with the ordinary people and feel this kind of ordinariness with his heart. "Brother Danu, I heard that the spoiled brat seems to have taken a fancy to your wife. You have to be careful," the dark-skinned man suddenly said to Jiu Fei. "What? That good-for-nothing bastard?" Hearing this, Big Brother Shi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and a ray of light flashed in his eyes. "Who are you calling a good-for-nothing bastard?" Chapter 2483. Outside the courtyard in front of Jiu Fei's wooden house stood 3 tall figures. Under the illumination of the fire, their faces could be vaguely seen in the darkness. "It's you." Jiu Fei and the others who were chatting in the courtyard were shocked. Big Brother Shi recognized the newcomer. It was the spoiled brat who they had just mentioned. Bang! The spoiled brat kicked open the wooden door of the courtyard and swaggered into Jiu Fei's courtyard with his 2 subordinates. Jiu Fei and the others who were sitting around the wooden table next to the bonfire stood up and stared at the 3 uninvited guests. Big Brother Shi and the others showed hostility towards the young man in his 20s who was wearing a high-quality animal skin and had an evil smile on his face. "What, I'm not welcome?" The young man had a slight smile on his face as he sat down beside the wooden structure. His 2 subordinates stood behind him with fierce expressions on their faces. "You," Big Brother Shi and the others took a few steps back and looked cautiously at the young man sitting next to the wooden table. "Soaring leopard, what are you doing here?" Big Brother Shi stared at the young man and said coldly. Although the young man was the son of the chief of the tribe, most people in the tribe did not like him. However, the chief of the tribe had a high prestige in the tribe and was the only person in the tribe who knew how to cultivate. The chief of the tribe was the most powerful person in the tribe. However, such a respected leader had given birth to a bastard son who abused his people and preyed on them. Although the chief was aware of his son's actions, he could not do anything about it. He could only turn a blind eye to his son's actions. "You asked me why I'm here. Don't you know everything?" the young man said with an evil smile and looked at the wooden house behind the crowd. At this time, Yang and the others had already entered the wooden house and stayed with the women. "Don't go too far," Big Brother Shi said angrily. Jiu Fei, on the other hand, looked at the young man in animal skin calmly. Although he was also very angry, he wasn't worried at all. This guy was too blind to actually provoke him. He changed his name to Da Nyo and wanted to live a peaceful life with Yang. However, as long as there were people, there would be all kinds of conflicts. "Too much." "I don't think so." Soaring Leopard shrugged his shoulders and said disapprovingly. "You're going too far." The tanned skinny man gritted his teeth and said, "I want to bully you. What can you do to me?" The Soaring Leopard smiled happily. He was glad that he had a leader as his father. It was because his father was the leader that he could do whatever he wanted. Humph. Everyone clenched their fists and glared at the Soaring Leopard. "Ayo, what are you guys doing?" Looking at the helpless look on everyone's face, Soaring Leopard enjoyed it very much. He loved to see the helpless and hopeless look on these people's faces. Big Brother Sure and the others wanted to kill this scourge. However, they couldn't because they were members of this tribe and their families were all here. If he was alone and had nothing to worry about, then he wouldn't have to worry about anything. He could just kill this spoiled brat and leave. However, reality forced them not to be reckless. Since you guys are not going to do it, I shall. The young man in animal skin looked at the crowd mockingly. He then waved his hand and the two fierce-looking men behind him walked forward. Fight! Soaring Leopard only said one word and walked towards the wooden house, ignoring Jiu Fei and the others. To him, Jiu Fei and the others were nothing to be afraid of. His two subordinates were more than enough to take care of them. After all, his two subordinates were very good at these things. You be ****, Big Brother Sure roared. This spoiled brat was really out of control. He actually dared to do something like this and steal someone else's wife. Hearing the shouting and fighting sounds coming from behind him, Soaring Leopard smiled. He even felt that he was a little neurotic and liked to see others struggle in pain. Sweetheart, I'm coming. The Soaring Leopard kicked the wooden door open and walked in proudly. Instantly, a wave of exclamations came from the wooden house. There were only some women and children in the house and they could not deal with the powerful Soaring Leopard. Bang! Very quickly, a figure broke through the wooden house and fell out, rolling in the yard. Goddamn be ****. Seeing this, the crowd that was beaten to the ground by the two men went crazy and their eyes turned red. However, there was nothing they could do. These two men were not people they could deal with. However, when they saw clearly, they were extremely shocked. Because the person who broke through the wooden house and fell into the yard was not the woman inside. It was the spoiled brat, Soaring Leopard. Young master. Seeing that Soaring Leopard had been beaten out of the wooden house, the two men could not help but be shocked. One should know that Soaring Leopard was the most beloved son of their leader. Nothing must happen to him. They hurriedly rushed over. However, just at this moment, a figure walked out of the wooden house. That person was dressed in white and had a peerless appearance. She was Yang You killed our young master. Seeing that Soaring Leopard was lying on the ground without any signs of life, the two men could not help but turn pale. If Soaring Leopard died, they would not be able to explain themselves. In a fit of anger, their leader would definitely kill them. Yang did not speak. At this moment, her body emitted an extraordinary aura, as if she was a fairy that had descended from the heavens. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Yang to be a hidden expert. Take her down. Otherwise, we will not be able to explain ourselves. The two men were both shocked and enraged. Then, they rushed towards Yang with malevolent looks on their faces. Their eyes shone with an ominous glint, as if they were two wolves baring their fangs at a lamb. However, in the next moment, an unbelievable scene happened. Yang waved her hand, and the two strong men were sent flying out of the courtyard, crashing into the undergrowth outside. Ah, it hurts. Just at this moment, Soaring Leopard, who was lying in the yard, suddenly moved and groaned in pain. He was not dead. He had merely fainted. Where's my little sweetheart? When the Soaring Leopard entered the wooden hut, someone kicked him out. The light in the wooden hut was dim, so he didn't see who did it. Who's your little sweetheart? At this moment, Jiu Fei's voice rang out. He walked to the side of Soaring Leopard and stared coldly at this spoiled brat who was acting like a tyrant in the tribe. It's you. Men, tie him up and throw him into the lake to feed the fishes. Soaring Leopard shouted out arrogantly. Ha ha. The moment Jiu Fei heard this, he could not help but burst out laughing. What are you laughing at? You're going to cry in a bit. Hurry up and kneel down and beg for mercy. If I'm in a good mood, I might even leave your corpse intact. Soaring Leopard said fiercely. Seems like you haven't figured out the situation yet. Jiu Fei shook his head. This guy was used to acting like a tyrant. Even at this point in time, he was still behaving in the same manner. Seemed like someone like this could not be allowed to live. As long as a villain like this was alive, the rest of the tribe would have to suffer. At the thought of this, Jiu Fei raised his right leg, ready to stomp this guy to death. Brother Darnu, please don't kill him. At this moment, Big Brother Sher and the others, who were knocked down by the two men, screamed out. If they could kill this scum, they would have done so long ago. This spoiled brat was the son of the tribe leader. Killing him would be disastrous. The consequences of that were not something they could bear. One had to know that within the entire tribe, no one was a match for the tribe leader. That was because the tribe leader was a cultivator. Even though he was close to 100 years old, he still looked like a 40-year-old man. You want to kill me? Haha. To think that you would want to kill me. Suddenly, the soaring leopard, who was lying on the ground, burst out laughing. It was as though he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. Looking at the soaring leopard, Jiu Fei could not help but shake his head. Seemed like this guy was beyond saving. To think that he would still be so cocky. Did he really think that the father of the tribe leader would be able to save him? There were countless tribes in the mountains. This tribe here was just a small one that was inconspicuous. Compared to some of the bigger tribes, it was just weak. Catcher. Just as the soaring leopard was laughing out loud, Jiu Fei's right leg suddenly stomped down. A series of sounds of bones cracking rang out from the soaring leopard's body. His chest had caved in from that single stomp of Jiu Fei's. The shattered ribs and sternum pierced into the soaring leopard's internal organs. Instantly, this insufferably arrogant spoiled brat breathed his last. Even at the moment of his death, this spoiled brat could not believe that this guy called Danu would actually dare to kill him. His face was filled with disbelief. No, seeing Jiu Fei stomp the soaring leopard to death, Big Brother Sher and the rest were extremely shocked. Now that the soaring leopard was dead, the tribe leader would definitely not let this matter rest. Brother Danu, you actually... Big Brother Sher and the rest were dumbfounded. From their point of view, Jiu Fei had gotten himself into big trouble. I will bear all the consequences. You guys don't have to worry, Jiu Fei said to Big Brother Sher and the rest. Brother Danu, what are you saying? We brothers are not cowards. Big Brother Sher and the rest struggled to stand up from the ground and said, let's take advantage of the fact that the tribe leader hasn't discovered us. Let's quickly pack up and leave this place. The skinny man said. Roar. Just then, a furious roar came from afar. *T. Chapter 2484. Roar. A furious roar came from afar, causing everyone to turn pale with fright. Brother Danu, hurry up and escape with sister-in-law. Big Brother Sher hurriedly shouted at Jiu Fei. His face was filled with panic and fear. It seemed like the leader had already found out that his son had been killed. The leader was a cultivator who possessed all sorts of godlike skills in the eyes of humans. To think that he would be able to sense the fact that Jiu Fei had killed his son at the first instant. Big Brother Sher and the rest had initially thought that they would be able to escape with Jiu Fei and his wife before the leader found out. However, they did not expect the leader to react so quickly. Hurry up and run with sister-in-law. Once the leader is here, you guys won't be able to survive, Big Brother Sher said anxiously. However, at this moment, a figure had already appeared in the distance. Under the dark of the night, that figure was like a ghost, approaching the wooden house where Jiu Fei was at without a sound. Jiu Fei looked at the approaching figure and could not help but feel a little surprised. To think that there would be someone like that in such a remote place. This was a transcending mortality stage cultivator. It was rare to see such a cultivator in a tribe like this. After all, only 1 out of 10,000 cultivators could become a transcending mortality stage cultivator. You killed my son. All of you shall die. A furious roar rang out, causing everyone in the tribe to be alarmed. Everyone was shocked, not knowing what was going on. *T. At this moment, Big Brother Sher and the rest had a drastic change in their expressions. It seemed like the leader was going to kill them all. Yanga laughed coldly and walked to Jiu Fei's side. Boom! A figure jumped in from outside the yard and landed on the ground, causing the ground to shake. The person who had just arrived was furious. Looking at the soaring leopard on the ground, his eyes were bloodshot. You guys, the person raised his head and swept his gaze across everyone's faces. His eyes were like lightning, like a ferocious beast looking at its prey. This, Big Brother Sher and the rest had never seen something like this before. They were so scared that they sat on the ground. Kill. Without any hesitation, the leader directly attacked Ji Yufei. He stretched out his hand and slapped at the top of Ji Yufei's head. His entire palm instantly became sparkling and translucent, as if it was carved out of divine jade. It's over. When Big Brother She and the others saw this scene, they couldn't help but close their eyes. They couldn't bear to see Ji Yufei's head smashed to pieces by the leader's palm. However, Ji Yufei smiled. Then, he stretched out his right hand and welcomed the incoming palm. The two palms collided. Die. The leader laughed evilly. In his opinion, Ji Yufei was merely an ant that could be squashed to death with a wave of his hand. However, his expression changed in the next moment. Bang! With a muffled sound, the leader's jade-like palm actually exploded, turning into a bloody mist that splashed all over his body. What? The leader was truly shocked. His entire body froze as he stared at his own arm in disbelief. How can this be? The leader mumbled to himself. He was a cultivator who stood high above the masses. How could he be wounded by a mere mortal? Big Brother She and the others were also dumbfounded at this scene. In their eyes, the leader was an omnipotent god. Though he was close to 100 years old, he still looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. To be able to maintain one's appearance without changing one's appearance was enough to make everyone respect him. You ant. The leader's voice was trembling. The leader's voice was trembling. He could not understand. There were no energy fluctuations coming from this person's body. He was clearly immortal, so how could he have such power? Could it be that this person's physique was so strong that he could hurt cultivators? At this thought, the leader became even more shocked. However, he had never thought that the so-called mortal standing before him was actually a saint king, a king among saints. Even though Ji Yufei had sealed his cultivation, his physical strength was enough to kill beings above the saint level. Even if he just stood there and let the leader attack him, he wouldn't be hurt at all. You can't escape the blame for your son's evil deeds. As Ji Yufei spoke, he directly stepped forward and kicked the leader's dantian. The leader immediately fell to the ground, howling in pain. He struggled and strands of spiritual qi started flowing out of his body. His dantian was broken and all his cultivation was gone. You're so ruthless. The leader howled out. At this moment, his originally jet-black hair had actually turned white, and his entire being was rapidly aging. You're already lucky that I didn't kill you. Ji Yufei looked at the leader and said expressionlessly. He wouldn't sympathize with the leader. He asked for all of this because he had a good son. The leader was so angry that he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Destroying his cultivation was even worse than killing him. After losing his cultivation, his fate would definitely be very miserable. One should know that this tribe wasn't big and there were many other tribes eyeing them. Once people knew that the leader had lost his cultivation, the other tribes would definitely not miss this rare opportunity. Brother Danu, Big Brother She was so shocked that he couldn't even speak. He didn't expect such a thing to happen. The leader who was like a god was now an old man with one foot in the grave. This tribe can't be without a leader. Big Brother She, do you want to be the leader of this tribe? Ji Yufei thought for a moment and suddenly asked Big Brother She. What, leader? Big Brother She couldn't believe his ears when he heard this. Ji Yufei didn't say anything else. He directly removed the seal on his body and pointed a finger, imprinting a cultivation method into Big Brother She's mind. This cultivation method wasn't some rare treasure, but it wouldn't be difficult for Big Brother She to cultivate to the immortal realm. Then, Ji Yufei directly injected a stream of spiritual qi into Big Brother She's body and helped him open up all the meridians in his body. He also planted a spiritual qi in his dantian. In just a short while, Big Brother She had been transformed from a mortal into a cultivator by Ji Yufei. Turning a mortal into a cultivator was so easy for Ji Yufei. Big Brother She felt the changes in his body and was extremely excited. Power, this was power that he didn't even dare to think about. But now, he had this power. Chapter 2485. Where are we going now? On top of a mountain peak, two figures stood. The man was dressed in animal skin. His long hair trailed over his shoulders. His skin was dark, and he was very strong. The woman was dressed in clothes whiter than snow. Her hair was like a waterfall, and her entire body seemed to be covered in a layer of white light. These two people were Jiyu Fei and Yang Er. At this time, the bright moon shone high in the sky. Under the moonlight, the world seemed to be covered by a thin layer of gauze, giving people a feeling of illusory. A clear and melodious voice sounded on top of the mountain. Yang Er looked at Jiyu Fei with endless gentleness in her eyes. In this year, although they were husband and wife, nothing happened. Of course, Yang Er wanted something to happen between her and Jiyu Fei. Unfortunately, Jiyu Fei was not romantic. Where are we going? Jiyu Fei pondered. After leaving that small tribe, they came to the mountains. There was no one around, and from the mountains in the distance, shrill beast roars could be heard from time to time. Let's continue to cultivate in the world, Jiyu Fei said in the end. Walking in the mortal world and experiencing the various forms of life was a form of tempering one's state of mind. He was very clear that if he wanted to reach a higher level in his cultivation, this was definitely a feasible method. Okay. Yang Er did not say anything and nodded. Let's go. As Jiyu Fei said this, he rose into the sky with Yang Er, disappearing under the night sky in the blink of an eye. They continued to walk in the world. Even though the world was boundless, it could not affect their minds. Their bodies were in the world, but their minds were clearer than ever. Jiyu Fei and Yang Er walked through one city after another and went to countless large human tribes. They were not passers-by. They experienced the various forms of life for themselves. In the blink of an eye, 5 years passed. Jiyu Fei and Yang Er saw miracles in the ordinary along the way. Their minds became more stable. During this time, Yang Er broke through the shackles of cultivation and passed the Saint King's ordeal in the cauldron of mountain and river, becoming a female Saint King. In the 10th year, they came to a place called Moonwater Village. Then, they completely sealed themselves, even their memories, and became real ordinary people. They were no longer high and mighty saints. They would get sick, get injured, and grow old. Jiyu Fei built a wooden house next to a stream next to Moonwater Village. He and Yang Er lived there peacefully, without competing with the world. In the eyes of the villagers of Water Moon Village, they were a match made in heaven. On an auspicious day, they got married. All the villagers of Water Moon Village came to attend their wedding. In the 2nd year, Yang Er became pregnant. Jiyu Fei was overjoyed. He directly went into the mountains and personally hunted a fierce tiger. He used the tiger's skin to make a leather coat for Yang Er. After 10 months of pregnancy, Yang Er gave birth to a baby girl. This was their first child, and she was treated like a little princess by the two of them. In the 18th year after Jiyu Fei and Yang Er became mortals, Yang Er fell seriously ill. On a stormy night, she left Jiyu Fei and his daughter behind and passed away. Jiyu Fei cried and buried Yang Er beside the wooden house. The little princess grew up, but Jiyu Fei gradually grew old. One day, a Daoist nun passed by Moonwater Village and saw the little princess, Jiyu Ling. She could tell that she had extraordinary talent, so she took her in as a disciple and brought her back to Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven to teach her Dao techniques. Jiyu Ling cultivated immortal Dao techniques and advanced rapidly. Her appearance did not change. 30 years later, she had already passed the immortal god tribulation and became an immortal. After becoming an immortal, Jiyu Ling was still like an 18-year-old girl. She was still mischievous in front of Jiyu Fei. To be able to accept a disciple like Jiyu Ling, it was as if Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven had obtained a supreme treasure. One had to know that Jiyu Ling was the only person in Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven in the past 1,000 years who could pass the immortal god tribulation and become an immortal god. After Jiyu Ling became an immortal god, Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven developed very quickly. They conquered several sects in the surrounding areas and became the overlord of a radius of thousands of miles. 30 years after Jiyu Ling became an immortal, Jiyu Ling successfully passed the Immortal King Tribulation and became the only female immortal king in Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. Her achievements were so high that she could be compared to the founder of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. At the moment when Guling became an immortal king, Jiyu Fei ended his life. He was over 90 years old. When Jiyu Fei passed away, Jiyu Ling sensed it and rushed back from Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. She buried Jiyu Fei beside her mother's grave. Just as Jiyu Ling was about to bury her father, Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven was attacked by a large sect. That large sect directly attacked Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven and killed all the cultivators of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven, leaving no one alive. Just as Jiyu Ling was about to leave, 3 figures suddenly appeared in front of the wooden house. The 3 of them formed a shape and surrounded Jiyu Ling in the middle. The sky was covered with dark clouds and bolts of lightning suddenly appeared in the thick clouds. The scene of a bright moon and sparse stars had turned into a celestial phenomenon that was about to come. "It's you guys." As soon as Jiyu Ling saw them, she immediately recognized the origins of these 3 people. "Fairy Jiyu Ling, Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven has already been destroyed. I think you should agree to my young sect master and be our young sect master's wife." A black-bearded old man dressed in a fiery cloud robe looked at Jiyu Ling and said coldly, "Mph, a toad wants to eat swan meat, wishful thinking." Jiyu Ling said coldly, "Since that's the case, then we're sorry." Another old man said. These 3 old men were all elders of the Fire Cloud sect and all of them were in the Immortal King realm. The 3 of them came to deal with Jiyu Ling together, which was enough to show how much importance the Fire Cloud sect placed on Jiyu Ling. "If you want to fight, then let's fight. Why are you so long-winded?" Jiyu Ling said coldly. Swoosh. At this moment, the black-bearded old man in the fiery cloud robe raised his right hand and a fire net immediately flew out from his hand. It instantly enveloped the sky and flew towards Jiyu Ling's net. Heaven Fire Net. Gulling was shocked. She never thought that her opponent would use a divine fire net refined by a supreme being right away. The fire net instantly sealed off all her escape routes. "Break!" Jiyu Ling shouted loudly. Then, a bright fiery light rushed out of her body and hacked at the heavenly fire net. Unexpectedly, a several-meter-long hole appeared on the heavenly fire net. Swoosh! Jiyu Ling soared into the sky and rushed out of the hole in the heaven fire net. However, the moment she rushed out of the heaven fire net, an extremely sharp arrow shot out from the side and directly hit her shoulder. She was sent flying and nailed onto Jiyu Fei's grave. It was a fire divine arrow. The power contained in the arrow directly severed half of Jiyu Ling's life force. Her blood dyed the soil red and seeped into the grave. "Fairy Jiyu Ling, surrender." The 3 immortal kings rushed towards Jiyu Ling, who was nailed to the grave by the arrow. "Even if I die, I won't fall into your hands." Jiyu Ling roared and was about to destroy her own primordial spirit. "Stop her." Chapter 2486. Jiyu Ling did not wish to land in the hands of the Fire Cloud sect. She wanted to disperse her essence spirit with a palm strike. However, at that critical moment, an extremely powerful force suddenly emanated from the grave beneath him and entered Jiyu Ling's body. Boom! Jiyu Ling did not think too much about it. She raised her hand as an extremely powerful force emanated from her palm. The 3 immortal kings were all sent flying by her. To Jiyu Ling's surprise, the black-bearded elder in the fire cloud robe exploded into a mist of blood in the void as he was sent flying. His body and essence spirit were both destroyed. Jiyu Ling was dumbfounded. She had merely raised her hand and sent the 3 immortal kings of the fire cloud sect flying. Furthermore, Elder Hua Yun, who had the strongest cultivation level, had been destroyed by her palm strike. At that moment, something that shocked Jiyu Ling even more was happening to her. Resplendent beams of divine light shot out from her body. Every beam of divine light was like a divine rainbow that pierced through the void. An unimaginably powerful force erupted from Jiyu Ling's body as the void around her trembled. One could see transparent ripples emanating from her body with the naked eye. What's going on? At that moment, the remaining 2 immortal kings of the Fire Cloud sect were shocked to the extreme. They even forgot to wipe away the blood at the corner of their mouths as they looked at Jiyu Ling in disbelief. "There's a supreme force awakening in her body," one of the immortal kings said with a trembling voice. "Let's go." The other immortal king immediately turned to flee. Although he could not understand why she had suddenly become so powerful, he could sense an extremely dangerous aura from Jiyu Ling's body. Swoosh! The divine arrow that was lodged in Jiyu Ling's body flew up from her body before exploding into the void. A flame-shaped Tao pattern dissipated. Trying to escape. She slowly stood up as her gaze swept across the two immortal kings of the fire cloud sect like cold lightning. The next moment, she vanished from her spot. At that moment, the two immortal kings of the fire cloud sect had already fled thousands of miles away. However, a lily-white hand reached out of the void without any warning and smacked one of the black-robed immortal kings into a mist of blood. This black-robed immortal king's body and soul were instantly destroyed. He couldn't be more dead. After killing the black-robed immortal king, Gulling appeared behind the last immortal king, causing that immortal king to be frightened out of his wits. Don't. This immortal king didn't want to die and wanted to beg for mercy. However, there was no expression on Gulling's face. She directly acted, slicing this immortal king into two. Bang! This immortal king's head exploded. A ball of divine light wrapped around a small figure and rushed into the sky. This was the immortal king's divine soul, and it wanted to escape. Experts at the level of immortal king wouldn't die so easily. Even if their physical bodies were destroyed and their primordial spirits escaped, they could still reconstruct their physical bodies and return to their origin, completely recovering. However, Jiyu Ling had no intention of letting this immortal king go. She raised her sword and a shocking ray of sword light shot out from her hand, instantly destroying the ball of divine light. Rumble. After Jiyu Ling destroyed the immortal king's divine soul, the sound of wind and thunder came from her body. Her entire body was like a sun, emitting a blazing light. She had the fire elemental body and was innately close to the Tao of fire. At this moment, a supreme power hidden in her body started to awaken. What's going on? Jiyu Ling was a little panicked, but she didn't panic. Instead, she directly returned to the wooden hut by the stream. When Jiyu Ling returned to the wooden hut by the stream, she was shocked to discover that the spiritual energy from all directions was actually gathering towards her father's grave, directly entering the grave. Then, she saw an unbelievable scene. Her father's grave actually cracked open. Boundless spiritual light filled the air and a figure rose from the grave. That person was none other than her aged father. How could this be? Jiyu Ling was in disbelief. One must know that she knew her father very well. Her father wasn't a cultivator, but a mortal. Moreover, she was the one who personally buried her father in the grave. With her immortal king cultivation base, there was no way she would make a wrong judgment. Her father was truly dead and his life force had been severed. But now, under the boundless spiritual light, her father's body actually emitted an incomparably strong life force. Moreover, her father's aged face was actually changing. The wrinkles on his face disappeared and his white hair gradually turned black. Jiyu Ling looked at this scene in shock. At this moment, Jiyu Fei had already sat in the air, breathing in and out the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth. The origin energy of the Nirvana realm started to awaken and the memories that were sealed in the depths of his soul started to recover. He wasn't really dead, but it was a kind of fake death. However, even his daughter was fooled. At Jiyu Fei's level of cultivation, his origin energy was already close to immortality. How could he die so easily? All of this was merely a necessary process for him to experience life. Birth, old age, sickness, and death. This was a cycle. Only by going through such a cycle could Jiyu Fei's Tao be perfected. Return of my true self. The boundless spiritual energy that gathered around Jiyu Fei entered his body instantly. At this moment, his cultivation state finally showed signs of breaking through. After 100 years of tempering, he had finally reaped some rewards at this moment. Jiyu Fei opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was his daughter. This was the daughter that he and Yang Er had when they were mortals. Following the return of Jiyu Fei, the bloodline within his daughter's body had finally awakened as well. Swish. With a single thought, Jiyu Fei appeared before Jiyu Ling instantly. Father, Jiyu Ling's eyes were brimming with tears as her voice trembled. My little princess, who bullied you? Tell your father and your father will help you destroy him. Jiyu Fei rubbed Jiyu Ling's head dotingly as he spoke with a benevolent look in his eyes. Father, why did you? Jiyu Ling asked. She would never have imagined that her father would be a powerful being, and a supreme one at that. This was because even she couldn't sense her father's strength. It's a long story. Let's wake up your mother first. As Ji Yufei spoke, he came before Yang Er's grave. At this moment, even after dozens of years, Yang Er's grave was still clean. There wasn't even a single weed. Mother isn't dead either. Ji Yuling replied emotionally. That's for sure. As Ji Yufei spoke, he pointed out with his finger. A beam of divine light rushed out from his hand and entered Yang Er's grave. At the next moment, the aura of a sage was emitted from Yang Er's grave. Chapter 2487. In the ancestral court of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven, a young man dressed in a fire cloud battle robe sat on a throne as he looked down at the three cultivators who were kneeling below him covered in blood. The three cultivators were all female Taoists. One of them was the current sect master of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven, Immortal Monarch Cloud Spirit. As for the other two, one was Ji Yuling's master, Immortal Dustless, and the other was an elder of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. Speak. Where is that last Ji Yuling? The young man on the throne looked at the three people kneeling below him and said coldly. The reason why he had mobilized so many experts from the sect to attack Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven in one fell swoop was to obtain Ji Yuling MPH, you scum. Don't even think of getting anything out of us. The sect master of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven glared at the young man and said angrily. The Fire Cloud sect was stronger than Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven, but with the Fire Cloud sect's strength, it was not an easy task to attack Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. However, things were often unexpected. The Fire Cloud sect had actually planted a spy in Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. 100 years ago, the Fire Cloud sect had already made preparations to attack Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. 100 years ago, the Fire Cloud sect had sent a young child into Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. 100 years later, the child of the past had become an important figure in Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven. Ling Yu, I never expected you to be a spy for the Fire Cloud sect. Immortal Dustless looked at a woman dressed in a Daoist robe standing below the throne and said through gritted teeth. It was her disciple who had personally led a group of Fire Cloud sect experts into Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven's ancestral land. Master, you only have eyes for Ji Yuling, but I, Ling Yu, am also your disciple. Why do you only value her but not my hard work? Ling Yu said. She did not wish to betray Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven, but Immortal Dustless and the sect master of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven wanted to pass the position of sect master to Ji Yuling. This made Ling Yu feel resentful. Although her cultivation level was inferior to Ji Yuling's, she believed that being a sect master did not require a high cultivation level. Since she could not be the sect master, she would destroy Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven and prevent anyone from becoming sect master. Ling Yu, didn't you say that you would offer Ji Yuling to me? Where is she? Hua Ao suddenly said to Ling Yu. Young master, don't be impatient. Ji Yuling will definitely come back. We just have to wait for her. Ling Yu said with a gloomy face. She knew her junior sister's personality very well. If she heard that something had happened to the Violet Spirit Paradise, she would definitely rush back. That's for the best. You should know very well what happens to those who lie to me. The Fire Cloud sect young master said indifferently. Men, pull out the tendons of these three people's arms and legs. The Fire Cloud sect young master suddenly revealed a ferocious look as he spoke to the people around him. Yes. The Fire Cloud sect members standing by the sides immediately walked forward and were about to pull out the tendons of Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven's sect master and company. Fire Cloud sect fiend, you will have retribution. Immortal Dustless said fiercely. Their cultivation levels had been sealed by Fire Cloud sect experts, making them no different from ordinary people. From the looks of it, Fire Cloud sect's young master wanted to torture them to his heart's content. Young master, this, after all, Dustless Immortal was her master, and Ling Yu could not bear to do that. There's no need to say anything else. Hua Ao said coldly. Boom. Just as Dustless Immortal and company were about to suffer a calamity, a loud boom suddenly sounded from outside the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven. A powerful energy fluctuation surged over. She's back. Ling Yu exclaimed as she sensed a familiar aura. Ha ha, Fairy Gulling, you finally can't escape from my grasp. Huo stood up from his seat and said with extreme agitation. His eyes shot out two beams of light. From his point of view, Gulling's return was no doubt a trap. Fairy Gulling's name had been resounding in his ears in recent years. If he could subdue such a proud daughter of heaven, it would be an achievement for Huo. Ling is muddle-headed. She shouldn't have returned. Dustless Immortal sighed. She is our hope. As long as she doesn't die, our Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven will not perish. The Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven's sect master said. She was very worried. Once Gulling was captured, everything would be over. Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven would be erased from the world. A great battle erupted. No one cared about Dustless Immortal and the other prisoners. Huo led a group of Fire Cloud sect experts and charged out. Sword beams crisscrossed outside as a figure rapidly traversed through the Fire Cloud sect members. Wherever the figure passed, the Fire Cloud sect members would be slain by a sword beam. All of you, retreat. Outside the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven's mountain gate, Huo shouted. The Fire Cloud sect members gathered outside the mountain gate immediately dispersed. They saw a fiery red figure standing outside the mountain gate with a sword pointed at them. Fairy Gulling, how have you been? Huo walked over and said to Gulling with a smile. Huo, it looks like you are tired of living. How dare you come here and behave atrociously? The person who came was Gulling. She looked at Huo opposite her with eyes filled with contempt. She looked down on such spoiled brats who abused their power. Hihi, ever since I saw you, I haven't had any appetite. I've been thinking about you. That's why I took the liberty to visit you today. Huo said indifferently. Cut the bullshit. Gulling slashed her sword at Huo. A sword beam emitted a scorching energy wave, slashing towards Huo. Heh, since you want to play, I'll play a few moves with you, Huo said. He opened his mouth and spat out a fire escape shield. This was an immortal tool refined by an immortal emperor. The fire escape shield expanded rapidly as countless runes appeared on it. Swish. The sword light instantly chopped down on the fire escape technique, directly splitting the fire escape technique into two halves. The two halves flew to both sides, and the runes on it dimmed. What? Huo was shocked. He never thought that the power of the opponent's sword was so terrifying that it could split an immortal emperor's shield. The sword beam slashed past Huo's side. A strand of hair fell from the sky and was engulfed by the flame, turning into ashes. The air was immediately filled with a burnt smell. Huo was infuriated. He seemed to have realized that he had severely underestimated Fairy Gulling. Fairy Gulling's cultivation base had definitely surpassed the immortal king realm. At this time, on a mountain peak near Violet Spirit Paradise, two silhouettes were standing. Our little princess is very playful, said a man on the mountain peak. On the mountain peak, a man said. This man was Jiu Fei. Standing beside Jiu Fei was a white-clothed woman who looked like a Nine Heavens Xian immortal. She was Yang Er. In my eyes, she will always be a playful little girl. Chapter 2488. In front of the purple Yang Grotto Heaven's mountain gate, Jiu Ling had displayed his prowess and consecutively destroyed several of Huo's immortal artifacts. Huo was so frightened that his face turned pale and he could only dodge in panic. Swoosh. A sword beam flashed by and Huo roared. His left arm had been sliced off by Jiu Ling. The extreme Yang True fire that was attached to the sword beam spread across his wound. In an instant, half of Huo's body had been burned to ashes. What? Although Huo was also an immortal king and was usually high and mighty, he found it unbelievable that the pure Yang sword chi produced by his opponent had such power. Dao fire. This is the legendary extreme Yang Dao fire. When Huo saw the nearly transparent divine fire burning away his body, he cried out in horror. He also cultivated the fire element Great Dao and knew how terrifying such a Dao fire was. Swoosh. Just as Huo was rapidly retreating, a cloud of fire descended from the sky and landed in front of him. A large hand reached out from the cloud of fire and slapped Huo's body. Bam! With a muffled sound, Huo screamed in pain. Half of his body exploded and the remaining half was a bloody mess. His body was almost completely destroyed. Elder Huaqu, Huao collapsed on the ground like a pile of mud. At this time, the cloud of fire in front of him dissipated. A tall and thin middle-aged man with a sallow complexion, wearing a black feather robe, appeared in front of him. "Greetings, Great Elder." In front of the Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven's mountain gate, all the Fire Cloud sect disciples immediately prostrated respectfully when they saw the black-feathered middle-aged man. The black-feathered middle-aged man was none other than the Fire Cloud sect's Supreme Elder. The reason why he was addressed as Supreme Elder was that his status in the Fire Cloud sect was second only to the sect master. He was truly second only to the sect master. "Little fellow, I just saved your life. Don't be ungrateful." Elder Huaqu glanced at Huao on the ground and said expressionlessly. He did not seem to care about Huao's life or death. Saving Huao was just something that Huaqu had done in passing. "You're quite capable, little bird." Gulling looked at the elder on top of the firebird and sized him up. She could tell with a single glance that this dark-skinned middle-aged man was not a human, but a firebird. The fire sparrow was a powerful fire-attributed ferocious bird. This fire sparrow wasn't something an ordinary fire sparrow could compare to. That was because this fire sparrow was actually an immortal emperor. "What did you say?" When the firebird heard this, his eyes immediately emitted bursts of fiery light. In the depths of his eyes, a flame-shaped Tao pattern was faintly discernible. His anger was not ordinary. "This fairy Jiu Ling is dead for sure." All the Fire Cloud sect disciples outside Purple Spirit Grotto Heaven Mountain were astounded. They looked at Jiu Ling with schadenfreude. After all, no one had ever dared to speak to Elder Fire Sparrow in such a manner. Even Huao was stunned. Fairy Jiu Ling was courting death. "Aren't you just a firebird?" "What? Am I wrong?" Jiu Ling said innocently. "Very well, kill yourself." The elder on top of the firebird squinted his eyes. Traces of anger shot out from the slits of his eyes. "TSK, are you stupid, little bird? Are you going to commit suicide?" Jiu Ling said mischievously. "Good. Very good. I wanted to leave your corpse intact. Since this is the case, I'll send you on your way myself." The firebird's voice was trembling. His head was steaming and his eyes were flickering with ferocious light. He was infuriated. Fire runes appeared on his body, interweaving into a mysterious fire diagram. A wave of great Tao energy rippled out from the firebird's body. "You should have done this a long time ago. Come on. Let me see what capabilities you have to be so arrogant." Jiu Ling stood with her hands behind her back. She looked at the elder on top of the firebird and said indifferently, as if she didn't put the firebird elder in her eyes at all. "Kill." With a wave of the firebird's hand, streams of pure fire elemental energy immediately turned into countless fiery feathers that emitted heat. They shot towards Jiu Ling in an earth-shattering manner. Jiu Ling did not dodge. She opened her mouth and inhaled. The fiery feathers that filled the sky immediately gathered in her mouth. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, she actually swallowed all the fiery feathers into her body. "Not bad. What a pure fire elemental energy." "Again," Jiu Ling said with a look of enjoyment. In an instant, she refined the fire elemental energy that she had swallowed into her body into a part of her own power. Jiu Fei had imparted the 10,000 returning to one technique to Jiu Ling. However, the firebird did not know the ins and outs. When he saw that Jiu Ling could actually devour his power, he couldn't help but be shocked and angry. "Who the hell are you?" The firebird stared at Jiu Ling and said in a deep voice. How could there be such a powerful existence in the violet spirit paradise? This fairy Jiu Ling's cultivation was definitely not below his. "Don't play dumb. How could you not know who I am?" Jiu Ling said disdainfully. "You little girl. Since you're in such a hurry to die, I'll grant your wish." The firebird was enraged and immediately attacked. An endless amount of fire elemental energy exploded from his body as countless fire runes appeared on his body. Buzz. The air trembled as the powerful fire elemental energy transformed into streaks of rainbow-like flames that pierced towards Jiu Ling. Each streak of flame pierced through the air, displaying an incomparably powerful might. The Firebird Elder's attack just now was just a test. However, what shocked the Firebird was that Jiyu Ling still opened her mouth and swallowed all the shocking flames that pierced through the air into her stomach. Then, she directly refined them. Streaks of rainbow-like flames entered Jiyu Ling's mouth, and the powerful fire elemental energy also disappeared along with the rainbow-like flames. How is this possible? The Firebird Elder could not help but be moved. With the opponent's methods, killing Huao would be as easy as flipping his hand. That's right. I've never eaten a Firebird before. I'm really lucky today. Jiyu Ling's words caused the Firebird Elder to cough up blood. Preposterous. Let's see who will eat who. The Firebird Elder immediately turned into a streak of flame and soared into the sky. Boundless flames spread out, instantly enveloping the entire heavens and earth, including the mountain gate of Violet Spirit Paradise. An incomparably huge divine bird appeared in the boundless flames. The pressure of a supreme immortal emperor spread out in all directions, causing all living beings within a radius of 10,000 li to be filled with fear. Gulling looked up. At this time, the Firebird had already transformed into its original form. It was a giant bird bathed in endless divine fire. Every feather on the giant bird was releasing incomparably powerful fire elemental power. There was an endless amount of fire elemental essence in the air. What a huge bird! Chapter 2489. The immortal Emperor Fire Sparrow was enraged. Jiyu Ling's words had completely infuriated him. He opened his mouth and inhaled at Jiyu Ling. Boundless divine fire surged and his mouth turned into a huge whirlpool, engulfing everything. Jiyu Ling immediately felt a force envelop him. Then, his body was involuntarily pulled by this force into the sky, flying towards the vortex in the sky. You want to eat me? You don't have the ability to do so. Jiyu Ling was extremely domineering. She immediately cast the Dharma convergence technique. A wave of energy surged from her body and the pulling force that enveloped her was immediately dissolved. What's going on? The immortal Emperor Fire Sparrow was shocked. Buzz. At this moment, a sword hum came from Jiyu Ling's right hand. A ball of fire appeared in her palm and turned into a dazzling flaming sword beam. It soared for thousands of miles, broke through the layers of fire and slashed at the Fire Sparrow in the fiery clouds. The powerful sword beam cut through the void of heaven and earth. It was indestructible, as though it had split the heaven and earth into two. Swoosh. The Fire Sparrow didn't have time to think. He flapped his wings and soared high into the sky. A few crystalline blood droplets fell from the sky. Every drop of blood contained a powerful fire elemental essence chi. Even someone as powerful as the Fire Sparrow was injured. How did she become so strong? Huao, who had been carried to the side by the Fire Cloud Sect's disciples, couldn't help but be shocked when he saw this scene. He couldn't believe that Ling Yu, that bitch, was lying to him. The cultivation and combat strength that Jiyu Ling displayed was not the combat strength that an immortal king should have. Where do you think you're going? Jiyu Ling soared into the sky. With a single step, she had already caught up to the Fire Sparrow. Then, she took her second step. An extremely powerful destructive force surged from her feet. What? The immortal Emperor Fire Sparrow was shocked. He never expected Jiyu Ling to be so fast. Her speed was even faster than his own. Bang! Jiyu Ling's foot landed. The Fire Sparrow screamed and fell from the sky. Scarlet feathers scattered from the sky. Boom! With a loud bang, the Fire Sparrow that was the size of a mountain fell into the mountain, smashing a mountain peak and causing chaos in the mountain. How is this possible? Huao was stupefied by the scene. Even Fire Sparrow wasn't a match for Jiyu Ling. Could it be that Jiyu Ling's cultivation base had already surpassed the immortal Emperor realm? The Fire Cloud Sect members were astounded to the extreme. The usually high and mighty Great Elder had been trampled down from the sky by Jiyu Ling. The scene was so surreal. Retreat. Huao quickly recovered from his shock and immediately gave an order to the surrounding followers. Then, an array platform lit up. Huao immediately asked his subordinates to carry him onto the array platform. He then activated the teleportation array and left the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven. Without any sense of loyalty, Huo led his subordinates and fled. Ji Ling did not stop him because the monk could run, but the temple could not. She had to make a trip to the Fire Cloud sect after this matter was settled. Roar. In the mountain, the roar of the fire sparrow was heard. Endless fire raged in all directions. The area within a few hundred miles was enveloped by the true fire. Everything was burnt to ashes by the power of the true fire. The fire sparrow was severely injured. This almost drove him mad. He had actually been trampled down from the sky. To him, this was an absolute humiliation. Sword riding flying immortal. Ji Ling yelled. She immediately displayed the strongest sword Dao that she had cultivated. An extremely sharp flaming sword light rushed out from her hand, slashing towards the fire sparrow below. The sword light was like a rainbow, descending from the sky. There were runes surging on the surface of the sword light, triggering a powerful wave of sword chi. Swish. The sword light instantly slashed across the neck of the fire sparrow. The head of the fire sparrow was sent flying. Hot blood rushed to a height of 100 feet. The body of the fire sparrow was instantly slashed by Ji Ling Bam. The head of the fire sparrow exploded. A small ball of fire wrapped around the body of the fire sparrow soared into the sky, trying to escape. At this level of cultivation, the death of one's body wasn't the end of one's life. As long as the soul didn't dissipate, the body could be reconstructed and returned to its original state. Of course, Ji Ling wouldn't let go of this fire sparrow. Buzz. A sword hum was heard from Ji Ling's body. Another resplendent and incomparably sharp sword light soared into the sky from her hand. This was a sword light that could cut down the stars in the sky. Under this sword light, the divine soul of the fire sparrow exploded like a brilliant firework. After emitting a magnificent radiance, it vanished into the void. After Ji Ling destroyed the divine soul of the fire sparrow, she kept the body of the fire sparrow. The flesh and blood of such an immortal emperor-level ferocious bird was not bad. Of course, it couldn't be compared to the flesh and blood of a quasi-sovereign in the mountain and river cauldron that was kept by Ji Fei. Ji Fei and Yang didn't show themselves. They quietly watched everything from the top of a mountain in the distance. After Ji Ling put away the fire sparrow's corpse, she directly rushed into the Violet Spirit Paradise and rescued the Violet Spirit Paradise's sect master and her master. After this battle, almost all the disciples in the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven were killed. The entire sect was almost destroyed. At this moment, the traitor, Ling Yu, who lured the experts of the Fire Cloud sect into the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven, had already disappeared. Clearly, Ling Yu had fled when he saw that the situation wasn't right. The Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven was Ji Ling's sect after all. In particular, Ji Ling's master, Immortal Dustless, loved Ji Ling very much. Ji Ling remembered this kindness in her heart. Ji Ling originally wanted to introduce her parents to the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven's sect master and the others, but Ji Fei and Yang didn't want to show themselves. They only met Ji Ling's master, Immortal Dustless. The Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven was just one of the countless small sects in the Starfall continent. Although Immortal Dustless was an immortal king, she had never seen Ji Fei and Yang. Immortal Dustless didn't know the identities of Ji Fei and Yang. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Ji Fei and Yang didn't reveal their origins. If Immortal Dustless knew the identities of Ji Fei and Yang, she probably wouldn't be so calm. After staying in the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven for a few days, Ji Ling left the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven. Daughter, are you going to make a trip to the Fire Cloud sect next? On a mountain peak thousands of miles away from the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven, Yang stroked Ji Ling's head dotingly. Yes, mother. Ji Ling nodded. If she didn't destroy the Fire Cloud sect, how could she face the dead disciples of the Violet Spirit Grotto Heaven? Take this. Ji Fei, who was standing to the side, took out a divine truncheon and handed it to Ji Ling. It was the human emperor truncheon. We do things according to our hearts. Do whatever you want to do without any scruples.